Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. Oh, goodness, the loyal opposition. And people have been on from so early. Oh, my goodness, from 3:27. Joy and Faith has been on from 3:27 this evening. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody who's on. So good to see you all. Loyal daughter 666, good evening. Loyal opposition members, please like and share so this can reach as far and wide to lend aid to our cause. Now is the time to take a stand and fight for our nation. Hurricane writer, good evening. How are you? She's saying, share with your friends and family and workmates early to cue them in for the start for class. It starts at 7 o'clock. Oh, we're in for a treat tonight. Nigel Newton. Nigel. Oh, Lordy, Nigel, I see you making a lot of contribution in that special chat that is launched. Yes, yes, yes. Ace 787. Good night to all loyal opposition members. Hope the weather is treating you all well. Ready for tonight? Yes, Ace, we are. And I hope you are sharing and sharing and sharing. And Trevor Seeley says, good evening to everyone and blessings. Okay, great, guys. Great. Carrie. Hey, Carrie. Good night, guys. How are you doing in this rainy weather? Yes, it's raining a bit in Barbados. It's been, yes, Wayne Austin. Yes, it's been raining. Good to see you. Good to see you, Mark Clark. Hey, Mark. Guys, please share. Please continue to share. Continue to share and let everybody know that we're on tonight. Is a very, very important night. The fight continues. Oh, from Rhode Island. Adrian Hines. Okay, great, Adrian. Always glad to see you as well. Marlene Seeley. Good evening. Where else are we watching from, folks? Where else? Tonight is an important night. Tonight, we are asking ourselves the question, what are we going to be doing? What are we doing with the information that we received, especially yesterday, after yesterday's discussion and the insight that we've received? What are we going to do with that? Blessings, loyal opposition. Raheem, how are you? How are you? Wayne. Hi, Wayne Hoyt. I haven't seen you in a bit, Wayne Hoyt. And Joyanne, who was the first on saying she can't wait. You know, I was out with the children at from Praise Academy today, and it was so interesting. I saw someone and they said, "Listen, my husband watches you every single night." And she was running home to make sure that they were signed on to watch it, and I was running home to make sure I was early for everybody as well. So tonight we have a great show for you in store as usual. The general will be on, and I believe Kimar will be on early as well. And we also have a treat for you because we have a Dr. ANN Gillies from Canada. And Dr. Ann is going to be speaking with us about, you know, the LGBTQ agenda. And she spent over 25 years in private counseling practice working with trauma survivors. She's going to show you the connection between trauma and, you know, people who are struggling with same-sex attraction. And she is living in Canada, and, you know, she's going to be speaking a bit on the issue that we are dealing with. Now, how many of you were on yesterday morning? How many of you were on yesterday? Saturday morning, 8:45. This video that is going viral already, we have, I think it's about 2,700 views on that video. You know, it's early morning. You don't expect a lot of people to know that it's on, but I'm hearing people are passing it along. Hurricane Writer, were you logged on yesterday morning on Zoom? You know, we were educated yesterday. Hi, Pedro. Let me see. No, but none of the loyal oppositions were on. Okay, loyal daughter said she was on. Okay, wonderful. And loyal daughter, I want to get your feedback on what you heard yesterday. Hasbra, good night. Jamilia, good night. What did you learn? Anybody who was on, if you were on, I want to hear what you would have learned from the program yesterday. Yes, 87. Dale was on, Joyanne was on. What did you come away with from that? I want to hear. I want to know, what did you come away with from there? I wonder if anybody would take me up and coming into the studio and tell me, what did you learn from yesterday's program. I'm going to put a link in there and see who is going to come in to say. I see Kimar is there, but let me just talk with you. Ramim says the legal strategy and the importance of prayer. She said the legal strategy and the importance of prayer. Pedro said he learned about the language used. What do you mean, Pedro, by the language used? So for those of you who are, if you weren't on and this is your first time, I didn't even say this is a Marcia Week show. That is such terrible. That is really terrible. I didn't do that. I went straight away talking to you guys, as though everybody knows that this is a Marcia Week show. This is the Marcia Week show, and I'm Marcia Weeks, the host of the show. And tonight we're looking at several issues, but one of the main ones that we're looking at is religious freedom. We're looking at religious freedom. We're looking at freedom of conscience, freedom of expression. And basically, this is coming out of the fact that Praise Academy did a presentation at NIFCA, did an entry at NIFCA, and the entry was disqualified. In fact, let me go here on my website. So it's on the marciaweekshow.com. And I'm just going to bring up the website at the moment. Okay, so if you go to the marciaweekshow.com, you'll find everything you need to know on this particular issue. So the National Cultural Foundation disqualifies truth. Okay. Let me know if you're hearing me. Okay, I'm for some reason my headphones sound weird, but let me know. The National Cultural Foundation of Barbados disqualifies NIFCA entry on October 27, 2023 that is written based on scripture and science on the grounds of discrimination. What was the NIFCA entry? It was a theatrical production that demonstrates God created a man and a woman. A man cannot become a woman, and a woman cannot become a man. This is called truth. Okay, and this is the NCF board here, or well, not the board. This is Carol Roberts Reefer. She's the CEO. I'm sorry, Michael Handley is a manager administrator. Andrea Wells, Chief Cultural Officer, etc. All right, and on the website, you're going to find the script for the scenes, okay, and you'll also find the comments from the judges. You'll also find a letter here. But before I even go into the letter, okay, Kimar is here. Let me bring Kimar on.
Hi, Marcia.
Yes, good night. Good night. No, your mic is a little too low, too high. It's squeaking.
Too loud?
Yes, there's a squeaking sound. Is it on my end? Anybody else hearing a squeaking sound?
What would no?
There's still a squeaking sound, but I don't know if it's on my end.
Well, I am not sure. My thing seems to be working all fine.
Okay. Anybody? Are you hearing a squeaking sound, or is it on my end? Okay. They're hearing it as well. They're hearing a noise coming through, a really high, like a high pitch squeaking. Okay, speak again, Kimar, and let's see.
How about no? It's fine.
Okay. A bit better. Yes, so people are saying, I wanted to see, as Kimar sorts that out, somebody says it was very informative, and it grieves me that our government would try to trick us with this child protection bill. And this is what even the Bar Association has been saying, that it is too wide. The width of it is too wide. The language is too wide. So, and this is a bill that they are saying that they're going to pass anyway, regardless of what people are saying. They're saying they're going to pass the bill anyway. Huh? Yes, the language in the bill, Pedro. Yes, the language in the bill. Dale is saying, I came away from all the information. Is that the agenda is being pushed all over the world, and we have to protect our children first. Yes. I got that as well. Sir Alfred Benjamin is saying he's locked on from Brooklyn. Ace is saying freedoms can be taken away at a whim. We need to stand firm in our belief systems and stand with those who may be oppressed, not knowing when our time would come. Yes. Hurricane said, writer said, the barrister from England laid out succinctly the big legal framework of the LGBTQ, etc., that is targeting Barbados and the region. Also, what is coming down the pipeline. The region has to unite. Yes, the region has to unite. That is what we got from that yesterday. So if you're just joining us, we are doing a review of the session that we had yesterday morning at 8:45, where we had 3 speakers on the program, a lawyer from the UK, a lawyer from Jamaica, and a psychologist from California. And we were talking about religious freedom and our religious ban, really, and discussing the implications of the NCF banning the Praise Academy entry that was made on last Friday. Okay, so we were discussing that, and so people are saying what they learned from it. Dale is saying we have to fight for our children's freedom of their beliefs so that they can speak their minds. Correct, yeah. Live examples on how legislation is used to oppress professionals and families who refuse to accept the LGBT push. Yeah, it was shocking, yes. And we had, the good thing, Jeannie, is that we had real life people there. You know, she wasn't just talking in a vacuum. She had the people there lined up, and they were coming, 2 of them. And we met some more when we were in Poland. We met some more. Yeah, somebody, she said, want to introduce bashment to the children. Yeah, it reinforces why there's a need for an opposition. You're correct. Because if we had an opposition there in Parliament, this would not have gotten this far. This bill would not have gotten this far. And this is why a program like this is important, because we're here to educate the masses. We're here to educate the people so that we have a strong opposition. right? And this is why you need to share the program that happened yesterday, so that people will be educated. They will know exactly what is happening. Because if we had a strong opposition, there is no way we would have, this bill would have gotten the where it is right now. And their plan is to pass this at the end of November. My question to the opposition: what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Kimar, you're still there? Let's see if your mic is working better now.
Somewhat better.
Yes, I think so. I think as we go along, I think so. It's still slightly there, but we're gonna have to do what we have to do. I see the general just came in. I give him a little time to sort himself out. But Kimar, I know that I know you were quite busy yesterday and weren't able to come on, but you've been telling me a lot of people have been talking about this session yesterday.
Yeah, it has been getting good feedback from people. People are appreciating you standing up for our rights. But first, let me just say hello to everybody. Let me not forget my mothers. Good evening to the opposition. Glad to be here again with you for another session. Uh, we want to thank Marcy again for the hard work that she's been doing. We really, really need to congratulate her. We really, really need to celebrate what Marcy is doing. And when she could tell you this, when she was out there as a one woman protest, standing up with her sign, challenging K. McConney and the government, I was like, no, no, this can't be a one man protest. It gotta be two. And I will definitely continue to support Marcia and her cause. Uh, Although I am an economist, I still have a heavy background in religious understanding. So for those persons who may not know, I'm actually a 7-day Adventist. Uh, so this topic actually falls right in line with some of my uh, teachings. So I am happy to help contribute here on this one. And I just want to quote something here. And I think I read from this book on the show already. And
one
the
second,
book by
Kimar.
Dr.
One
Elliot.
second. Kimar, are you outside?
No, I'm actually indoors. The same spot I'm at every night.
Every night, okay, because we're hearing like somebody asking if you got crickets outside.
Yeah, the crickets. Crickets are heavy.
Yes, but go ahead.
I would try to turn on the volume so it don't pick up so being mic. But yeah, I wanted to read a piece from the book here by Dr. Elliot Duggan. Uh, it is called, this particular chapter is called Danger on the Horizon. And it said that the price of liberty, and it was a quote from Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson said, the price of liberty is external vigilance. And those who stand vigilant must have the wisdom to discern the earliest signs of any movement against liberty of conscience. And the generation of human beings entering the 21st century will be a generation by and large that was born free and that has become complacent about freedom, even taking it for granted. And there's perhaps no greater threat to freedom than complacency. And we now have a generation of people who know very little, if anything, about the severe struggles endured and at the high price paid in blood to gain the freedoms in which we now have taken for granted. And so another threat now raises its ominous head that the generation entering the 21st century will be the freest in the history of our world. But not only that, they will also be the greatest abusers of freedom. When the people who have forgotten the price of freedom begin to abuse it, there will be those among them who will suggest that the only way to curtail the abuse of freedom is to restrict it. It's an argument that sounds good, but only at the superficial level. It is an argument that sounds compelling to those who are in panic over increasing crime, increasing lawlessness, increasing corruption, and it is an argument which gives an easy way out for those who feel to see how people can be changed for the better without coercion of conscience.
Mm-hmm.
In summation, then, as we enter the third millennium, we do so with two enemies to freedom. The first is the reality of taking our freedom for granted. The second is the abuse of our freedom. And it will be an easy matter for most people who have to accept a restriction of liberty of conscience if they are persuaded that it will make the world a safer place. But will it or can it? Right? And that was a quote from Thomas Jefferson, speaking to the threats that we face in this day and age. So, in regards to your situation, Marcia, we had the freedom of individual conscience fully established in the 1800s. And that was a big jump from what Rome and the early popes would have started in Europe. We didn't have freedoms. People didn't have freedoms at those times, in those times. So that is how you got what you call the Protestant church, or the rebellious people they call them, who moved away from the restrictions of freedoms, of liberties and freedoms of conscience. Those people were living the direct slave life under the Pope and the papal system in Rome. What we have nowadays is a reversal of those freedoms to give back over the power to those who had it at first. Right? To take away the freedom of religion, the freedom of association, all of the freedoms of which we enjoy that our forefathers fought for. We have a set of people following orders to take those freedoms away and to return us back into slavery, where we no longer have a freedom of conscience. It will be a collective, it will be a collective conscience handed down by a government. So Marcia will no longer be able to think for herself. She has to go with the national narrative. So what you did there in terms of your protest, I will address it from two sides. One, the fact that you used to reserve the right as an individual using your conscience to not comply with whatever is handed down, whatever restrictions are handed down. Two, from the saints also, that we also have to look at from, and this is from the side of the oppressors, we have to look at it from the sense that they're asking themselves, will they continue to allow individual freedoms, or are they focusing on global and world survival?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Marcia's individual narrative, where she wants to put out religious content and speak about two genders, that is a threat to the global narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So these people in their, I would call it Neanderthal mindset, right? Their dark ages Neanderthal mindset, believe that the expression of religious reasoning and religious philosophy and religious persuasion, that these type of activities should be outlawed, where people should not think about God, not think about a supernatural or omnipresent power that is bigger than them, that they would have to follow the rules and regulations of a god, for the Muslims Allah, and for other persons. They want to wipe that out completely. They want to wipe out religious conversation. They want to wipe out religious gathering. And this will lead to what you call eventually the Sunday law, where governments all around the world will say that as part of the notion to uh, rest, give people a day to rest, we will implement Sunday law. But if you read religious history, you will see that the Pope admitted that they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. right? You will see that. But my debate here is not really about when the Sabbath is or not. But
Right.
the historical fact is they changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. The Roman Empire, which ruled the world, and eventually governments all around the world are going to set up what you call the natural Sunday law. I remember me and Motley during COVID having up a book that was written by the Pope, and she had it right next to her face. I'm sorry I can't turn on my camera to show you how she had it, but she had it right next to her face, and she was quoting from it, right?
Hmm.
Remember, when they locked down this country, they actually ruled that everything was supposed to close on a Sunday. So Sunday was the most restrictive day that we had in COVID. That they said only the gas stations could open during COVID. Not even the gas pumps could open. They opened the retail mini marts and shut the gas pumps. Right? So you're saying that our religious tenets are being attacked. Look at what they did
Yeah.
to Leroy's Canterbury.
Correct.
Right? So
Correct.
So,
So
I mean, I don't
you're
want to
saying
ramble off on this because I
no,
mean, there's a
no,
lot to
no,
say on this. You know, this is one of my pet topics as well.
but have it.
But
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you your slogan now, which is that you will not complain. Not all
We
will
will
complain. We will not complain.
we
Right?
will not
And
comply.
it
We will
says
not
here
comply.
that history has made it abundantly clear that there is never 100% compliance with
Right.
any system of national or international control. Some minority groups will raise their voices in protest against the system, but philosophical persuasion, legislative pressure, parliamentary pressure, and inexplicable miraculous phenomenon will silence most of the objecting minorities. That's
Mm.
not us, by the way. But those who oppose for religious reasons will not give in either to the arguments or to the legal pressure, and their protests will bring matters to crisis proportions.
Mm.
Harsh
Mm.
penalties will be administered to those who oppose the system, but this will not silence them. Even the threat of the death penalty will not deter them in their protests, and the world will thereby be brought to the greatest crisis in the history of mankind. And those who refuse to comply will give historical and scriptural evidence to prove that no imperial or global system can succeed by trampling on the rights of the individual in matters of conscience and faith. Yes, a new world religious, political, economic order is on the horizon for the entire world. And with
Wow.
it will come the greatest crisis in history.
Yeah.
But why? Will there be more to the new political and social economic order that meets the eye? What far-reaching issues and absolute principles of human rights will be violated in such a crisis? And will this new global system be successful, or will it usher in something sinister? But we
Hmm.
must examine the issues. So
So
that is my contribution for now.
yeah, we're heading for some serious time, as it says, is a time of crisis. Because I believe that people are catching on. You would believe that we invited all the media houses yesterday, and I believe that there were more of them on. And Starcom was there. We heard nothing came on Starcom today, nothing in the newspapers, nothing. Is as though it never happened, something that matters to the people so much. Nobody knows about this disqualification, and this is why we're asking you to share it anytime, anything that comes out on it. We have to do it. We, the opposition, we have to do it. And it's not a Praise Academy issue. This is an everybody issue, because we're talking here about the censorship of expressions, right? Censoring expressions. And I see the general is there, and I know you were on yesterday, Mr. Franklin. I saw your name. And I don't know what time you came on, but how much of it you heard. Good evening, sir. How are you? Hold a minute. Hold a minute. Okay, we're hearing you now. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Repeat.
I was on from beginning to end. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the thing is, your presenters show that we are not unique. That this is universal now. Everybody is doing this, and so that means that Barbados government is just following a script. This is nothing. This isn't homegrown. We are going. I can't say we. They are going outside in the outside world for whatever they want, for monies or whatever they want, monies, general secretaryships or whatever, and they are trying to control Barbados for the benefit of one person. Whether the outcome would be good or bad for this country. I look. I want to carry on from Kimar, but he was talking about the churches.
Yes.
Over that COVID period, I was talking about it all along, and I figured nobody was listening. I even had a reason to speak to a group of pastors, and I blast them off. I tell them, look, I'm ashamed of you people, because you are sitting down and taking all of these directives as they come, not even speaking up against it. I ain't going to break the law or anything, but at least speak up against it. Because you would recall that a minibus could have held 15 people, remember? But a church, 10. So watch People's Cathedral, St. Michael's Cathedral, Abundant Life. They can hold 10. They could have held 10 people during the COVID period. 10 people.
Right.
And you
Big
can
churches.
easily fit 10 minibuses in those churches. And the pastors saw nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong.
They just complied. They didn't speak up. I believe that they have no had a new God. Politics, or the leader of the politics, not become their God, because ordinarily they should speak up. That's what they're there for. If they can't speak up for the people, speak up for God, because you have set yourself up as one of God's people. Or you might say God chose you, but I don't believe God chose you if you can't speak up for him now. You might be speaking up for the collection. And I'm very serious. I'm very serious about that. I am very serious about it.
Casual, I wanted to give you basically give you a wicket to run on here. And listen note. But you said something earlier that the government is following the script, right? I right here looking at that script. So I could read some things for you that you wouldn't even be shocked. It would be like an exact word for word description of what is happening in Barbados, right? And it is saying here that plans are afoot to establish this new economic order in the world, and that this new global political system aimed at judicial control of the population, that they will come out and say that it is their intention to restrict and to provide international control of human activities. And the list of reasons why they would provide this prescription is that there will be a rapid rise in the level of crime, violence, and general lawlessness throughout the world, especially in city areas. Most of the crimes and shootings that happen in Barbados happening in the St. Michael areas and its jurisdiction. One. Two, there are ongoing problems between capital and labor, big businesses and their employees. Caswell could tell a lot about that. Three, problems plaguing the world economy, recession, inflation, poverty, debt. Just look at the debt levels of Barbados. Look at the debt levels of all of the countries in the world, really. Look at these recessions. Look at these wars. Look at the high prices of cost of living in almost every country in the world, especially Barbados. Right? International trafficking of illegal drugs. Right? So much cocaine and so much drugs. Y'all can remember when the ship left Barbados and went to England? with tons of cocaine on it passed through our borders. Not a boy. The shit wasn't even searched. It left Barbados waters with tons of cocaine on it. Okay, moving on. International terrorism. Look at the Israeli-Palestine war. Right? I hear this one specifically, Caswell. The threat of water and food shortages as the world population increases. Sounds awfully familiar, right? The global greenhouse,
Especially water.
all right. The global greenhouse effect caused by industrial production of certain gases. This will cause the global atmospheric temperatures to rise, producing the melting of more ice at the poles and therefore a rise in ocean tides and an increase in the frequency and severity of hurricanes, cyclones, and floods. Look at Barbados. We were even flooded up today, right? And we're flooding more regular than usual. A new pattern of infectious diseases, HIV, Ebola, coronavirus, increasing levels of environmental pollution, industrial, nuclear, and domestic waste, right? The progressive abuse of freedoms by elected officials, and the last one, this one is especially this was especially interesting about Barbados. Fanatical cult leaders that mislead, delude, and destroy many in their countries. Those 11 principles don't sound very familiar to us, Gago.
There are, but you see, the thing is, with these fanatical cult leaders, people think the fanatical cult leaders are always going to be religious cults. And that's a mistake because the biggest cult in Barbados right now is called the Barbados Labour Party. And they have a leader who can do no wrong. If somebody points out that she has done something incorrect, you don't even have to be criticizing her. You just mention that it is not correct. A whole barrage of people spring into action and start to be abusive. And trying to make sure, like any cult leader, they know they have their followers, and they have made it you remember Barbados Labour Party used to have red and yellow. Then all of a sudden, she started with her white scarves and white this and white that, and tell people to wear white because she wants to change it into her own image. That you see, people didn't see these things coming, but they were there, they were coming, people were noticing it. But I think Maria Eargard mentioned it when she spoke about, we definitely have to come in white. She said that in one of her last speeches in the House. Nobody listened to her either. She's no longer an MP because she dared to stand up to the cult leader. Barbados has one God now.
Right.
For a majority of these people you see wearing red shirts. So then you can go, and then you can go to and get a church leader, a leader of a church, to come down and spoke the nonsense that Curtis Goodwin spoke. And I was ashamed of him, All along, I never had any difficulty with him, but when I heard excerpts, because I don't really listen to these things, but when people give me excerpts and they read somebody said, they said, well, look, this fella got a new God. You got to be careful.
Oh my!
Before we do anything else, Marcia, I want to do something here.
Wait.
Thank you.
Oh wow! Are we hearing you? You plugged in?
You hear me good?
Yes, we're hearing you quite good. You're hearing him good,
Good.
guys. Guys, anybody hearing Caswell? I'm hearing Caswell. Well, speaker, say something else. He has our new headphones now.
Yes,
Tell us about that.
I want to thank everybody who was responsible. They came yesterday, but the other speaker note, That has a little problem because my attachment doesn't have a USB, so they will have to fix that. But this stick can work with just these and connecting to the system, so we are good to go.
All right.
So I didn't want to start the show with it on my head, so I had to make it a big.
Yes, well, I tell you, they're taking care of the general. But you know, Mr. Franklin and Kimar, people were there yesterday and they heard everything that the speakers had to say. They heard about Jamaica. What happened in Jamaica when they decided to fire Professor Bain? Because you know what? Some people were not happy with what he was saying. So they decided, he expressed himself, and they decided that they were going to fire him. And what did the Jamaicans do? You remember what they did, Mr. Franklin?
Well, they claimed 25,000, but when the police said 25,000, you know, especially if they're working for the government, you know, it's probably double. Because I saw that crowd. It's crowd you couldn't make out an individual. The crowd was so thick. But the people, even if they were only 25,000, I believe there were more because other people estimated it at more. But even if there were only 25,000, even if there were 12,000, it would have been a significant showing for for Professor Bain, you know. And you know what really bothered me most of all when I saw that is that the body that did it was an institution of higher learning. So even those types of institutions are compromised, you know, because I don't know if they worry about their funding or whatever, but it is difficult to sit down and see these things happening and say, well, look, you know, this is the narrative, and then sit down and keep quiet. I don't know how people can do. I don't know how people can sit down and keep quiet with things like this. It bothers me. You see, like I was trying, you know. I keep telling people I was trying to keep away from this noise in the area of politics and everything. And I said, well, look, the people wanted this. They voted twice and they get 30 seats each time. So I said, well, if that's what they want, let them have it. But then when the government was going further and further, because they were taking away more rights and they were doing things that were more abusive and offensive to people, I just couldn't sit down and say anything. So that's why I started. And I thank Marcia for the opportunity to come to use her platform to speak up on these issues, because I didn't want to like start something new and get it, then start to get a following. Marcia had a following, so I piggybacked on her and try to get some of these things done, because this government has been doing everything wrong. In Parliament, they pass laws without telling people. They have a manifesto. A manifesto is supposed to be the promise to the people of what you're going to do for them if you get elected. And if you look at the stuff that is happening in this country, what they're doing, it was never in their manifesto. They're coming up new. They're jumping, you know, even something as simple as the $100 for the children at the school, going to school. That was just out of the blue to counteract something that people were doing and something that people were saying. So you wanted to distract the population, so you throw something up there, $100. They think people could be bought with $100.
So there's no vision, there's no philosophy, there's no vision.
There's no philosophy. No, it is just harebrained schemes coming up with the Prime Minister. She just comes up with something. Just to show you, 2 members of her cabinet told me that they did not know that Rihanna was going to become a national hero. 2 of them. And they said to me, one of the 2 said that nobody in cabinet knew. That all of them were surprised on the night when she said national hero. That's how she operates. She runs the country like it is her own little despotic place.
Right.
She's a dictator.
So you know, I'm thinking as you're talking about you know, just her manner. and the way things are done, etc. I'm thinking that that is part of one of the reasons why people, you ask people, so what are we going to do about it? Say for example, we had the show yesterday, and the Jamaicans took to the streets. My question to Bajans is, what are we going to do about it? Today I saw a friend of mine, she did up something. I want to read a little bit of what she says here. She says, what can we do? This is in light of what has happened to the NCF, and the possibilities of what could happen, what can happen to us. And she's suggesting that people begin to write letters, writing letters to the NCF. That's one of the things that the Jamaicans did. They started to write letters to the editor, write letters to the university, because the university fired Professor Bain for saying his beliefs, which are based on the Bible, about homosexuality. And because he shared his beliefs, the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, they fired him. And what the Jamaicans did, they rallied around Professor Bain. They didn't say that, oh, that is something that's Praise Academy issue. That's Professor Bain's issue. But they rallied around Professor Bain. And the question is, will Barbados rally around this issue and use it as a platform then to be able to say to the government, we are not going to give up our freedom. We're not going to give up our freedom of expression. Jamaicans, they started to the protest, as Taswell said, as you were saying earlier. They had up to 25,000 people in the square protesting. Some of them don't even know Professor Bain, but they understood what time it was. They understood what that moment meant. The question is, do we understand what this moment means for us? And, Mr. Franklin, I was supposed to let you know there's someone who's coming on tonight. She's going to get on from California to speak to us about half hour on what, not California, from Canada. I'm sorry, Canada. Dr. ANN GILLIES from Canada. She's coming on, and she's going to talk about what is happening in Canada and how Canada is pushing back. What are the Canadians doing? And so she's asking us, as I said, my friend, someone put something up and asked her to send letters. And on my website, there is an actual letter that is actually done up for you. This is the marciaweekshow.com. And you should be able to see the letter there. It says, Dear XXX. You will put the Dear chairman of the board. This is the NCF. You can, copy this and put it in Word, and then put in the address of the NCF in it. Okay? And you can sign it, print it, sign it, and take it in. So the letter is already done up for you. She did it up, and I told her, send it. I will put it on the website so that if whoever wants to send this letter off to the NCF, then you can send it. You can also email it. And you can check the website for the email address for the NCF and the regular address, right? That you can send it by post. Yeah, we still do those things. we still use post, But I would like to know from people though, Mr. Franklin, what are we really going to be doing about this situation? Are we going to just continue to talk about it? Do we think that just talking about it is going to solve the problem? What are we going to do? What if it's Praise Academy today? Tomorrow it might be the Seventh-day Adventist church down the road. Is the Baptist church the next Wednesday? It is a school the next day. It's a principal. It's a teacher. What are we going to do?
I will tell you, the situation here in Barbados, a lot of people are afraid. We have a lot of people working in public service, and they are afraid of losing their jobs because the politicians get involved in the hiring and firing of civil servants. Because look at Alban Bob and Pedro Shepherd. They broke no rule, but they were brought before a panel to decide if they should continue to work in the public service because they followed the Constitution of Barbados. Because these people and they got the chief education officer, Ramona Archer Bradshaw, to bring charges against them. Now, I am sure, and I could be wrong, but I'm sure she was not acting on her own initiative. Somebody had to set her up to that, because all over all the years before, teachers ran in elections and nobody ever faced any disciplinary panel. Well, there were the only two. And while you hear the prime minister talking about, oh, she was trying to give 2 seats to the Dems and all kind of stuff in the Senate, while at the same time she was trying to destroy the Dems. You see, so people are afraid. People are afraid of this woman because they see evil. You know, I might sound harsh to you, but that is what I see. She pretends to be nice. She has this nice smile. Yeah, she has a good smile. But the devil was the angel of light. Remember, he was pretty too. You know, Lucifer means light, the angel of light. So when she come here with a pretty smiling thing, she's just as evil as you can get. Smile in your face and then do nastiness to you. So people are Barbadians are afraid. We have to let people know that if you stand together, I sometimes I do lectures in industrial relations for groups, and when I step into the room, I walk into the room. I like to make a grand entrance. So I come in after everybody's seated, and I come with a box of matches, and I give the first person in front of me, I give them a match, and I say, break that. And everybody looks shocked, because they can't say, well, you asked me to break up a match. And then I give them two, and they break the two together there. And I said, well, okay, then I take a handful. And they put me, I said, no, break those. And they try breaking, and they can't break. I said, that's your first lesson in industrial relations. When you stand together, they can't break you. And that is what we have to do. Because if we stand together, let's say in our workplace, public service, if the public servants stand up, you can't fire all of them. It happened in customs when they wanted to put customs under BRA. We decided that they're not going into BRA, and they said no, and they had to go slow. There was one container every 45 minutes or so coming up the harbor. Of course, you couldn't stand that, and they left customs alone. All right, so you have to stand up. You can't do it by yourselves. If you try to do it by yourselves, you'll be picked off. You have to have a show of force. I don't want to sound like I'm canvassing for unity workers, anything like that, but that is what must happen. The churches should stand up with Marcia and Praise Academy for what's happening here, but they're not going to do that because I see somebody put in the comments just know that they get generators, they that and the generator don't even cost 30 pieces of silver these days. It's much cheaper than that. So, so when they can get bought off with baubles and little things and a seat on a board, and you come to some commissioner, they give you some sort of notice or a contract, and then you are good. You be a religious leader, and then they give you a little job on CBC to do a little commentary and stuff, and you forget God. This is what is happening, but the people have to stand up. If the people don't stand up, nothing will happen. And people have to stand up. People have to stand up to them. And we need leaders. We need leaders out there who are willing to lead from the front. And apparently, a lot of those people don't mind leading, but they don't want me to see them lead.
Yeah.
Guys, I wanted to jump in here a bit. See a couple of things. I I was listening very keenly on what was being said. I recognize something happening in Barbados when the government first won 30 love. Ironically, we had the crossing of the floor by the bishop, and that is how we got Caswell, right? So the bishop, being a religious person, I'm not sure what type of bishop or what denomination he was from, but the bishop uh, gave us Caswell, and I think it was Crystal Drake. in the Senate, and I was thankful for that. But I was expecting more in terms of the expression of certain arguments to tackle the BLP, because to me the BLP is kind of acting, and if you use the church language, the BLP is kind of acting like how the first oppressors acted in terms of how the Pope and the Roman Catholic early church acted. They believed that matters of conscience and matters of faith and practicing your religious liberties were heresy, and they didn't want you to have that, right? So now you are getting the mixture of church representatives into the state business, right? I am one of those persons who believe that people with religious backgrounds and wisdom could be involved in politics, right? But I don't like the mixture of the church and the state at a policy level, right? Because when the political party with cracks, most people say most of these persons will fall in line with the party. But that is not what our forefathers fought for in terms of freedom of expression, right? So in terms of freedom of expression, matters of faith, matters of worship, you still have people today that believe that these things go against their organizations. And they are working overtime and using empty vessels to pass legislation in parliament to go after people who still maintain and observe those rights. And those are rights that were guaranteed to us through our constitution, right? Because most countries across the world are built on what you call Christendom, or under the Christendom, right? And there are elements of Christendom in most of the constitutions around the world. So this is no surprise now that the government came with this idea to change the constitution of Barbados, hence going to a republic, right? Because they are intended to remove those pillars of freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, freedom of liberty, freedom of faith and worship. They are intent on removing those rights from the constitution of the country to turn it somewhere that we need for it not to go. So just look at what they did, because look at tell you about it. They want to take God out of the constitution. They want to take God out of the national anthem. Right? So all of these things about when use the word creator and all of the words that they're using that is not the word God, they want to take out. But that is not by accident, because they are taking our voice from people, institutions that still exist today that are hell bent on removing those freedoms that we fought for, that were guaranteed in all of the constitutions, all of the countries who practice Christendom. If we look across the Eastern world, where Islam is the predominant religion, I never really read a constitution from an Eastern country, but their countries run seem to be running much better than the ones that we have across here. Like,
Kimar,
and
you
nobody
must.
says no. Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No. But you were speaking about the taking God out of the Constitution. But one of the people who was there promoting that was a religious leader who actually contested the seat of Bishop, Anglican Bishop of Barbados. He was there pushing it with them. So you see what is happening. The
Could you say that again? The person who did what?
one of the persons who were proposing, I talking about Reverend Rogers, who ran to become the Bishop of Barbados, the Anglican Bishop of Barbados. He was one of the people supporting taking God of the Constitution, taking God of the and they're talking about Creator. So when you have a religious leader that is more secular, because he is interested in taking God out of the Constitution, as opposed to, because if I were a Christian leader, I would want to be putting God in everything that I do. Everything I do, I would let God shine and let people see God coming out of me. But no, he wanted to say, no, we don't want that. He supported it. Persons like that we don't need around in Barbados society, misleading the public, misleading their congregations. I went to his church the other day, and he was looking at me and he was saying, he was begging as a reference. I know he meant me, but I didn't bother stand up. It was at the funeral and I didn't bother. But this is what we have. When you can take the religious leaders in Barbados and pervert them or convert them to BLP. You got it made, because Barbadians are still somewhat of a Christian society. And when you see the priest leading you, when you can get the priests, you get priests and teachers, you got good background for people to follow. Because I remember my heroes outside of my parents are all teachers. All teachers. I have they have my primary school teacher, Pat Gibson and Hugh Bathwaite, and then Dr. Mayor Common Mayor. These are my heroes. People don't hear about them because they used to teach at primary schools and Dr. Common Mayor, but those are the people that I look up to. So outside of my parents, my heroes are all each and every one of them was a teacher. So when you can get the teachers,
so you explain. Do you know that you explain that something that the Bible spoke about in terms of John, what he did in terms of wanted to take out God. The Bible spoke about the mark of the beast, right? And it said that after warning against the worship of the beast and his image and the breaking of God's commandments, it says that the special characteristic of the beast and therefore his image is the breaking of God's commandments. And he shall take to change the times and change the law also. And it spoke about men of power and men of power who would try to exalt themselves above God. Right? So they would try to take out God out of the Constitution, but then exalt themselves as men and women of power, so that people will worship them instead of God. Right? And that's what we're seeing right now in terms of our leaders. That's the reason why you're seeing this marriage between, and it's unholy, by the way, this marriage between the church and the state. And that is why that reverend who was done at the BLP thing, he could be comfortable going on the political platform to talk that trash, right? But some moral person, some moral person who has authority over him should call him in and talk some sense into him and let him know that you cannot be a misleader on the pulpit of the country and speaking so disparagingly of others, right? Because if he followed what the government was doing, he should be condemning them. How can you, as a religious leader, be supporting a government who want to take God out of the anthem, who want to take God out of the schools, who want to take God out of the Constitution? We mean he might be worshiping God, but a false God. Right? We need to be aware of these wolves. They're not even wearing street clothes anymore. They're coming straight to you as wolves, trying to eat, right? Trying to eat the people of this country. I cause them to go against themselves, to condemn themselves, right? And to do things that they know that they're not supposed to do. So, I mean, in this time, I said the Bible and other books spoke about the marriage between the church and the state, and it also spoke about philosophers, people who are professors, people who are lawyers, economists, doctors, like Mwanza and those guys who came on to the panel the other day. It is not only the leaders, but it is the choir around them, the people who the BLP through their mandates and policies have infiltrated free institutions and inserted their political hacks at the top of them to mislead and change the course philosophically of these institutions and to mislead and mamagate people into leading them into basically the pits of hell, right?
Yeah.
And not only some of these leaders, we need to remove some of these pastors and preachers and priests, and we need to remove some of these university professors, some of these lawyers, some of these doctors, some of these economists. We need to remove anybody who has been contaminated by these dangerous philosophies because they don't mean well for Barbados.
They mean well for their pockets. They mean well because they want to live good. They want to drive a Mercedes like everybody else. So they would go where the money is. You talk about the doctors. I'm so afraid of the doctors, not even funny, because 90% or more of the doctors in Barbados encourage people to take things that they don't know what they're talking about. None of them did any research. None of them knew what they were talking about, but they were telling it was good for you. One week, one of them was saying, they were they don't like these things, they don't like the idea of develop properly. And then a couple of weeks later, they were on the front line. Remember that? And pushing these
Giving
things.
people remdesivir.
Yeah. I am so. A guy called me yesterday, and he was talking about lawyers who went to prison, and now they're back out and they're working, that kind of stuff. And I said, look, lawyers call themselves their profession a noble profession. The only body that will call it so are lawyers. If you work with some of these lawyers, you will not believe that they're noble people. It is only noble for them. They call it so, and people that along with them. And I asked him, now, if you had a plumber who went to jail and he comes back out, you think you won't let him fix your pipe? If you had a carpenter who did something wrong and he went to jail, so he come back out, he's still a carpenter. These people are just tradesmen. And I'm one of the people who believe that if a guy goes to jail and he comes back out, he served his time, he did what he had to do. He got punished. Carpenter, lawyer, well, they have one exception, PDF files, they don't change. But when you go out there and you want to put your business in their hands, that's your business. That's what you want to do. So I don't have to put this noble profession. Let me tell you something. Some years ago, a magistrate in this country was being horned. And she walked up to the lady who was horning her with a gun and went to the house and pulled her gun on the person. When the police got the police back off. And this was one of those people in the noble profession. All right? So don't tell me, and it is known to a few of us and a lot of policemen who would sit down and grin and laugh at it and all kind of stuff. So don't tell me about these noble professions, all kind of stuff. When people make mistakes, I tell them, let them repent and come forward. God will forgive sin. And I'm not one to say, well, I'm better than God, and he can say that he forgiven sin and I ain't forgiven it. When people will make mistakes, people will make mistakes, will do the wrong thing, and they pay for it.
Correct.
Let them live, because then what you're going to do, make them come up there. Like a fellow who go there, he did something wrong. Not about noble, but I don't want to hear that nonsense. Now, if you are still out there with them and you want to say, look, I ain't going nowhere near this man because he was a thief and a thief for me, that is your call. But if I decided I want to go up there and say, well, look, I know who he is, I know what he is, I'm going to still give him my business. Who is the state or anybody else to come and say otherwise? He or she paid for their mistake, they paid for their crime. And we cannot continue to punish people over and over and over ad infinitum.
Yeah.
I'll say just one last thing.
Okay.
I have with you. And it says, yeah, God never forces the will or the conscience, but Satan's constant retard, and we could change out Satan for somebody's real name, but Satan's constant retard to gain control over those persons who he cannot otherwise seduce is by compulsion, by cruelty, through fear or force. He endeavors to rule the conscience and to secure homage to himself. To accomplish this, he works through the religious and secular authorities by moving them to enforce human laws in defiance of God's laws. And I think that is what we are seeing here.
Well, if you can change out Satan to some other name, you can't say to himself anymore. You can also say to herself.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen. Well, guys, it's so good that we are here talking about our concern, of them trying to get God out of the Constitution. We are hearing that they want Barbados to be a secular country. That's one of the things I remember going to a meeting and I heard somebody saying, we don't want any more prayers to be done at any before any meeting, and we want a total secular society. And probably that's why this production was disqualified at NIFCA, because of where it is going. And I just want to say, before Dr. Ann Gillies comes up, I want to say that this letter that is you see on the screen, it says a disqualification of Speak Life in the NIFCA, Speak Life NIFCA entry. If you're interested in doing something about it, we can sit here, Caswell, and we can talk about it. We can keep talking about it. But I think there are over 340 something of us here watching right now. And those of you who are going to watch tomorrow morning, whenever you get this program again, it is we are all responsible to do something. We have heard something, we have to do something. We have to get up, we have to do something. You can go on the website, you can download the letter, and you can send in the letter. You can write a letter to the editor. Do something. What is it that you are going to do? We talk about the churches, we talk about the pastors. What are you going to do? Dr. Ann Gillies, she's going to come on and she's going to talk to us about Canada and what is happening in Canada. They've tried to take away the freedoms of those people, of Christians and others in Canada as well, who speak up about different issues. She's going to talk about to us about the dangers of the LGBTQ agenda. As I said the other night, the agenda, it's not just it's not the people, but is a philosophy that they're pushing. And what is really behind that? I heard her speak in Poland, and she was talking to the people about what is behind that agenda, and that is what we're seeing. What we're seeing happening. She's going to talk to the church in Barbados and the Caribbean on how to respond to the removal of our freedoms in terms of freedom of religion and conscience and expression. They're under attack. What do we do? And I'm not sure she saw it, but I know we were talking a little bit in our little discussion there in Poland about that, just that small section of the child protection bill that she had taken a picture of when Andrea put it up on the screen. And we're going to talk about these things, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome her to the Marcy Week show. Dr. Ann Gillies has spent over 25 years in private counseling practice, working extensively with trauma survivors, and retired from practice in 2019 to focus on advocacy and political reform for the traumatized, those struggling with unwanted sexual attractions, and for the most vulnerable, our children. She's actively involved in current national debates around sexuality and gender in Canada and the USA. And she's going to be here with us. And we are very, very happy to have her. Welcome, Dr. Gillies.
Good to see you again, Marcia.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Let me introduce you we call him the general, but he's one of those that are really, really carrying the baton and really speaking up for those who, feel like they can't speak up for themselves. This is Caswell Franklin. Caswell, please meet Dr. Ann Gillies. Okay, he's muted. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I said, it's good night, Mom. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well. Sorry, I just didn't hear all of that. Just something happened with my um, the feed, but it's good now.
Yes, and also Kimar Stewart, and he's a young man on fire for God as well, and he is really. I think I told you the story of me having this placard on the street, and two men came to help me, and he's one of them that came to
Awesome.
help me with this placard on the street. And we're so happy to have you on the show today. I know today was a busy day for you, so we appreciate the sacrifice.
Well, it's been a good day. It's been, yeah, very busy. It's been a busy time, anyways. A lot of travel, and you know that, Marcia. So, yeah,
Yes,
it's
yes,
good. It's good.
yes. Well, we want to jump right in, and I know you do a lot of work in Canada around this whole thing of sexuality and gender. Can you
Yes.
just give us an overview of what you do in Canada before we jump right in?
Okay, for sure. Well, my lane, um, first of all, I am a retired psychotherapist, but also I'm an ordained pastor. But my lane, as far as research, has been in the area of trauma and attachment, same-sex attraction, and the whole area of the gender confusion and transgender phenomenon. So that's kind of where I've been focusing the last, oh, I don't know, 8 years or so. So in that, as you said, I ended up retiring from practice so that I could focus on working in advocacy with politicians and church leaders to bring awareness to this issue and the I will call it a devious agenda to sexualize our children. And yesterday I was speaking to about 200 people in Canada at a church, which was really excellent because the church has been slow to become aware of what's going on in the culture. And that's not unusual. Sometimes I always feel like the church itself, and I'm talking broadly, is about 10 years behind whatever's happening in the culture. And that's about exactly where they are with this issue. So, um, but yesterday was a wonderful experience for me because it was a free reformed church, so from
Mm-hmm.
kind of the Reformed tradition. Um, and there were about 200 people, but I would say three-quarters of those were young parents, and that's exciting. So because it's been very difficult getting parents to come out. This was on a Saturday, so that helped. But parents are now becoming aware of what is happening with the sex ed curriculum. So for me, I think I've written several books. I've written 6 books. One's on trauma, but the rest are all on gender and sexuality and the sexualization of our culture and understanding why and how we got to where we are right now in Canada, which is about 10 steps ahead of you in Barbados. And that's why I think it's so important what you're doing right now to address some of the things that are transpiring, because one of the things that we understand in Canada, the US, and much of the West now is that there is a really strong push, and it's not just strong, it's a strong armed push to actually have a curriculum, a very sexualized curriculum from kindergarten or JK right through to the end of university. But it's really changing the brains of our young children. It's sexualizing them. It's making them focus on sexual issues. It's teaching them sexual practices in the classroom. They not only, they talk about things that no 5-year-old needs to know. In fact, most teenagers don't even need to know. And so
And
they're
so this
encouraging
is
those.
what's happening. This is what's happening in Canada at the moment.
Yes, yes,
Mm.
yes. And what's also happened in the last 5 years in Canada, we have just seen an explosion of young children who now have decided that they were born in the wrong body, that they are and the term is transitioning, and the term is not to be transgender. Transgender itself is not a medical term, it's a political term. The term before, to describe individuals who believed they were in the wrong sex, or they wanted to become the other sex, they were called transsexual, which was more accurate for sure. The reality is, though, that the teachers in our education system and right throughout our culture, parents as well, are not only encouraged to agree with a child's thought process in this idea that they can be born in the wrong body, which is an impossibility. And parents are, I would say, strong-armed into agreeing with the child's delusion. Because when you are not facing reality, that becomes a delusionary tactic, And so that's really what is happening in Canada and the US. And if anyone disagrees, if you would dare to say that maybe this isn't the right way to go to affirm a child, because that's the term used, and actually in psychology and in any counseling field since about 2015, we have had to affirm. It's called affirmation therapy. You cannot dispute with the child's thoughts that they are in the wrong body, and you can't challenge that. You can't tell them that perhaps, they need to just take a step back and think about this. You have to encourage them. That's really what they're being mandated to do. So this is really scary. And it sets the child on this I would say a conveyor belt, like a factory conveyor belt, toward medicalization and then further into mutilation of their bodies, which is a horrific thing. The latest book I wrote is called Ultimate Deception, the truth of gender affirming care. And so it talks all about that. And I have the latest research that really refutes all of that. The idea that you should affirm a child, because what you're doing is lying to the child. And I think that's one of the things as parents and as teachers in the education system that you have to take account of. What are you doing to this child's mind when you lie to them? And you tell them, okay, so now you're a boy. Okay, so we'll call you Sam. And you go through all of that. And then this child gets to be like 25, and they realize that they've made the biggest mistake of their entire life. Their parents have encouraged them. Their teachers have told them, yes, this is right. The doctors have prescribed all kinds of medication. And then many of these young girls, even as young as 13, are having double mastectomies. In the hopes or the idea that they can become male, which is, it's just such an insidious indoctrination. So there you go. That's kind of an overview of what is
happening. As you said, you are miles ahead of us, and your job, you're on here tonight to say to Barbados and the Caribbean, you have to wake up, you have to push back.
Yes.
I know that in when we were in Poland, as we listened to Andrea Williams, she made mention of a certain phrase in our child protection bill in Barbados, and it talked about in the best interest of the child. And I know that everybody there was saying, "Oh no, this is dangerous." What are your thoughts about that? So Andrea spoke yesterday as someone from the UK, and I think it'd be good for Barbadians to hear you from Canada speak about the child protection bill, at least that section of it.
That's right. Well, I would say, like, who determines what's in the best interest of the child? And I mean, this is all under the guise of child protection. And I would have thought that you had some pretty good laws of child protection already on the books. You know, your social services, they already have child protection acts, just like in Canada. And then this one comes along and it looks very similar and it has a lot of good things in it. But then you come to this place, who determines what's in the best interest of the child? And in Canada, let me tell you this, the parents do not have rights like they've had in years past. Actually, in the words of one transsexual man, he said, actually, the parents don't have any rights. The children must have the rights. And that is very much, and I'll share in a little while about why that is so important for this group, is this sense that the child gets to choose. The child gets to choose who they are, what they kind of, how they want to behave. But then very deep in this is how they identify. And this is all about, to me, this is about what is identity. And it strikes very much at the heart of the gospel, because our identity, we have an identity already. We have a God-given identity. But this whole curriculum and what's in the best interest of the child, I think this is really up for grabs, because the teachers will say, well, this is in the best interest of the child. And the parent will go, wait a minute, I don't think so. And then social services will come in and say, well, we agree with the teacher. And we see this happening, and we don't think the parent is competent to make these decisions. And it can be, it's certainly in this area of sexuality, that if, and back to this affirmation, if a parent refuses and says, no, Sally, you are not Billy, you're Sally, you're my little girl. And if that child in Canada reports that their parent will not let them dress like a boy or claim they are a boy or use a boy's name, those parents can be charged.
So let me ask you something, Dr. Gillies. In Canada, do they have a bill that is similar to our child protection bill that will give the state that right, that they could actually punish the parent or remove the parent from the home? I mean, remove the child from the home.
Yes.
If the parent doesn't follow what they assume is the best interest of that child. Do you have some kind of legislation in place like that?
We do. In Ontario, where I live, it was Bill 77 was the first one that was implemented that really restricted the rights of the parents. I mean, there's other bills, but that one really, really began to destroy parental rights. And I mean, this is the saddest thing, because, you know, there is no one that loves their child like the parent. No children's aid worker loves like the parent. No teacher loves like the parent. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't some outlier parents that are not good parents. Of course, there always have been throughout history. But let's talk about the general public. Parents will always work for the best interest of their child, and because they know their child. And so what this kind of legislation does is really rob the parent of the right to make decisions on behalf of their child. And that's really scary, because who can determine the best interests
of the child? And we want Barbadians to understand that you know, this is a bill that they are looking to pass by the end of this year. Actually, it should be in a couple weeks. It's gone through the parliament already, and it's going to, according to them, regardless of people, there are some people who are questioning some of the things in the bill, and what they're saying is that regardless of what you're saying, this bill is going through. Another section in the bill says that the removal. This is section 3. The removal of a child from his parents shall only occur where it is necessary to protect the child from the risk of serious harm or danger. The challenge with this is that we don't know who determines, right, the interpretation of serious harm or danger. You know, do you have these same kinds of issues in Canada with what's happening there?
Yes. And see, this is because the language of these bills is very generalized. And so you have this, like, if a parent is being, or if a child is being physically harmed, absolutely, we need to do something to protect that child, you know, from the parent who is harming the child. When it comes to this whole issue, we have this sense that harm is becoming very subjective. It's who decides what's harmful for the child. And it's not so much about the physical abuse coming from a parent. This is more dealing with harms on the level of psychological harm. And that brings us into a whole area where, you know, if you have individuals and you have psychologists, psychiatrists, clinical workers who are very much trained in kind of a new way of thinking, actually, and they see harm in the whole concept of the parent not agreeing with the child, then that can be very dangerous for both the parent and the child, because it puts them in a place where the parent is, it's very scary, because if they disagree with the child, then the child can be taken from their home. And in this area, you know, in this whole sense of sexuality.
And do you see that happening in Canada? Do they have cases of that in Canada?
There have been a few cases. It hasn't happened a lot. Most of the time, I have to say, in Canada, parents have just gone along and decided that, you know, it's less, they don't want to fight with the government, and they don't know. They don't understand, because they have not been taught the danger of affirming care. They don't understand that they are being told by the doctor, by teachers, that this is a good thing for your child to transition, or to become a gay or lesbian or bisexual, that this is normal, and that it is good. It's good for your child. Well, we know, I mean, from years and years of research, that individuals, and this isn't taking pot shots at the LGBT community, but we know that there are all kinds of medical and mental health issues that are very, very much exaggerated in this community compared to other populations, and they aren't being cared for. So there's this whole thing that we don't teach the whole truth. You know, what we're seeing is there's I would call it an agenda to teach a sexualizing of our children, but we're not teaching them the dangers. We don't teach them the dangers of all of those things. And we don't talk about love or marriage in all of these things. That's went out the window years ago, probably 2 decades ago. Abstinence, you cannot talk about abstinence or anything like that. It's all about sexual practice and what brings the child pleasure. And I'll say this, and I hope there's no children listening, but in British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada, this school year, so just this past September, a young child, I think about 5 years old, came home and told the parents what their activity, their homework was. And their homework was to not tell their mom and dad. This is what the teacher told this child. They were in kindergarten. that they were not to tell their mom and dad, but they were to go to find a very private place in their home. Their mom and dad would never find them, and that they could self-pleasure in those places. And teaching the children how to do that, like what that is, and what they're 5 years old. This is the kind of thing what we didn't see. Parents didn't see this happening. It's been gradually coming in, but now we have a lot more teachers that have come out of the very woke universities, and they do not have the same moral ethic as the parents. And they have been really saturated with a sexualized perspective to start with in the university. So we're reaping some of what's been sown over decades. And yes, it's really, really tough. It's tough for parents, but they're starting to stand up, Marcia. They're starting.
Okay. I'm hoping that with us, doing these shows, and I know that we're working on getting you physically in Barbados at the beginning of December. We were meeting on that today, and I'll tell you some more on that. But I want to tell our viewers that we're working on getting Dr. ANN GILLIES in Barbados, and what we thought of doing as well is at the end of your presentation that we do, we put on the performance. So it closes out with Praise Academy doing that performance that they disqualify, which we're going to talk about as well. But I want to ask you something though. Do you think that the bills, these pieces of legislation, that they are vague for a reason? That there's a reason the language is so vague, as it's talking about the best interest of the child and what is, in the harm, in danger, in harm and danger. Do you think that there's a reason behind it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's it's not that the whole entire bill is awful. There's some good parts in it, and isn't that often the way? That things creep in. There's some good stuff, and then and then there's these things that you gotta go, well, I don't know about that. And those are the things that we need to start up and go, wait a minute, what does this really mean? And I think, one of the things is emotional abuse and what causes psychological pain. And in Canada, one of the things that kind of the rhetoric, I think, is what I would call it, is that if we do not transition children, if we do not allow them to go through the social transitioning in the schools, change their name, have pronouns, all of those things that have become rampant in Canada, if we do not allow them, then we are torturing our children. It's psychological torture. And you see what a slippery slope that is, because who's determining the torture? This isn't torturous to say no to a child's delusion, but when everything is upside down, then disagreeing with the child about their biological sex or their ideas of assigning identities and pronouns, that if you disagree with that then can be psychological torture. That's how the wording gets used, and it's very vicious. It's very vicious.
In a nutshell, can you tell us what is, because I heard you speaking on this in Poland, what is behind the LGBTQ agenda? Of course, we know the people we're not talking about the people, we're talking about this agenda that is being pushed. What, in a nutshell, can you talk to us about that?
Well, I can. I think certainly it is all about the sexualizing of children. And one of the things I shared, and I actually have this, I may read a couple statements here. This I came across a document that was actually the transcript of an interview. Let me just move this over here so I can see it. It's not moving for me. Of course it's not. Sorry about that. But this was an interview done in 1980, and it was an academic setting. The interviewer was from Princeton University, and he had a lot of questions. The questions were very biased to start with, but the lady he was interviewing was a radical feminist named Kate Millett. You can Google her. And he was asking her about cross-generational sex. See, they changed the topics. What that really is and the terms, what that really is incest. And he was wondering how that would fit into the sexual revolution. Remember, this is 1980. And what Millett says is, this is her quote, certainly one of children's essential rights. So get this in your mind, because it's about children's rights. One of children's essential rights is to express themselves sexually, primarily with each other, but with adults as well. So this is 1980, and this is academia. And the big picture really is the annihilation of humanity when it comes to the big picture. But when it comes to our children and what's going on with all of these pieces of legislation, it's really coming down to your children need the right to make the decision to have sex with adults. Well, no child.
Oh, pedophilia. So you're saying all of this, behind that agenda, not the people, but the agenda is
That's right.
Pedophilia is where we're heading. Mr. Franklin, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to open your mic, because this is, I know you've been saying this for a long time about this agenda, but you were saying something, Dr. Ann, before I think I cut you off.
Oh, well, there's a couple more things I might want to add from that. Just a minute. So she talks about sexual freedom of children is an important part of the sexual revolution. So you hear this. So this is 1980, and what we're seeing now is exactly the fulfillment of this. As a child, now listen to this, as child and adolescent sexuality reaches greater freedoms, the proximity of family members. Now, isn't this is just sick. The proximity of family members makes one experiment and challenge the pedophilic taboo. Take that apart. So as a sexual freedom of children is important, and adult and child sexuality reaches greater freedoms, then because the child's in a family, the proximity of family members makes one experiment and challenge this taboo. I mean, this is mind-boggling, but this has been in academia for 40 years. And that's why we are having, a new generation of young people and young teachers who have been soaked and saturated in this kind of ideology. It's very disturbing. It's incredibly dangerous to our children.
My goodness. Do you have a comment on this, Caswell or Kimar?
Yes, I was making notes while Father Gillies was speaking. I didn't want to interrupt her because she was going quite well. But she was, one of the things that I made a note of is this 5-year-old being told to go home and find a place to pleasure themselves. Prior to this period, that would have been called contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
Yes.
That's a long-standing common law offense. So what is happening with the laws and then, because here we have legislation that says that if you have sex with a person under the age of 16, you can't have consent. And so what has changed? What is making these people believe now that they can ignore all the norms, all the standards that we held dear, and that was right for us for centuries. Now for them to come and say, okay, well, you can have sex with a baby if you choose, you know, and if the baby is yours, no, you don't mind. Like this sounds more like evil. This sounds more satanic than what is the best interest of any child.
Well, it's sexual abuse, and see, this is the issue. When you think of this kind of suggestion or talking to a child even about such a thing, like what right does any teacher have to talk about those things to a child? It's not their child. And this is where parents need to start standing up and saying, don't talk to my kids about these things. You have no right. And yet, because of the education system here in Canada, which you do not want to incorporate in the Barbados, you have to stand up against this now, because you have a window of opportunity to hopefully shut it down. In Canada, we're working on the other side. Go ahead.
No, we are getting there, because right now there is a teacher at a school in Barbados who wanted a child to send pictures of his private parts to him. And the parents controlled to the ministry, complained to the ministry, they controlled to the principal. Principal did nothing about it. And the most they did was that the teacher, well, you hold off work, I'm school for the time being. You know, and so we are allowing this bad behavior, even here. So you are saying that you're 10 steps ahead of us, but no, we're catching up here. We're catching up really fast because we are learning how to do it.
Yeah, because we wanted to make a point there. We had in Barbados a case where a gentleman, I won't say his name because he works in the media, he had sex with a minor, a boy, right? And the case was represented by the Speaker of the House, Arthur Horder, and he was saying that it was consensual, that the guy actually wanted it, so therefore it couldn't be raped. And then there was a challenge buggery laws based off that. So there was love between an adult and a minor, but that is against our laws. But our Attorney General came out and said that Barbados is too small for uh, sexual offenses registry against child rape, right? And that is crazy. Every country should have a domain where people who interfere with children sexually be listed on that to become a sexually registered offender. That even if you move from St. Michael to St. Thomas, the people in St. Thomas should know that you interfere with the children. If you go to work in a school, it should be on your file that you interfere with the children so that they will know not to hire you. But that's not the case in Barbados. We seem to want to put the pedophiles to run the programs over the children. Right? There were even cases in Barbados where people were accusing MPs and prominent people in societies of going into the children's homes and raping little children. Right? A little child's mind is not developed to make the decisions to engage in such activities. I thought at 16 years old my mind would be mature, but it clearly wasn't. Right? The knowledge that I have now, when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have done some of the things I done at that age. So to ask a little child to be engaged in practices like that, one, the bodies are not ready for such, so it will bring damages to them. Because even some adult females, when they engage in sexual activities with some men, it damages the body. So think about a little child now, but this is a bigger agenda at play, because if you remember something called Epstein Island, where big celebrities and politicians and all the rich billionaires of the world will go to this island to be having sex with little children. Right? We are changing Barbados into a space to allow the rich and famous to come into our island, that if they want to get their king on with their little children, that there are no laws in place to lock them up, because the laws in some of the countries where they originate from are too stringent on those type of relationships. So with enough money paying off government officials or whatever, they could pervert justice by financing a couple of these government institutions and encouraging them to change the laws, like in what we have here in this child protection bill. And these influential rich people would now be coming to Barbados. And that's why we had that IDB survey, that sexual survey under the disguise of a computer science test.
Right.
That was a gauge to see how many young people are into this homosexual type of behavior and deviant behavior.
Yeah.
So
Let me just tell Dr. Gillies, excuse me, about the survey. I don't know if you remember me telling you about a survey that on the children in Barbados. They had over 200 and I think it's 280 questions to do, and the parents were not aware. I think I told you that we're not aware of them doing this survey, and some of the questions in the survey. Was asking the children about which gender they prefer, and if they feel suicidal, and if they, if they, I guess, often do they have sex, and those kinds of things. What was being asked, those kind of things were being asked in the survey, and the parents had no idea. It's one child who came out and spoke about that. So that is what Kimar is making reference to, and so we're wondering, saying it could be that they are trying to gather information on the children, because we don't know where that data has gone, and that was sponsored by the IDB. He also talks about Barbados not having a sex offenders registry in Barbados, because we do have a lot of abuse from the state, where the state, children in state care, in
Yes.
children's home, they have been molested. We have children in children in any care of the government in Barbados. They have been abused in terrible ways. Only about 2 years, they had a young girl tied up by a chain, naked, and this is government care. So these are some of the things he's talking about, and I would love to hear your thoughts on whether we should have. Do you think that a sex offenders registry is important?
I think so. I mean, I think it's one way of keeping track of who's around your children, number one, and that they don't get jobs. One of the things you need to understand about pedophiles, and so I have a fair bit of experience with this because my first husband actually, I found out after I had remarried that he had sexually abused our boys. I knew he was having homosexual affairs, and what I found out was that he and his boyfriends were sexually abusing my children. And that just, I mean, it was horrific, horrific. But the reality is that we need to know who these people are. They need more than just their hand slapped. They need to be getting good, lengthy prison sentences for abusing our children. But here's what I want to go back to academia and what the academics now. We understand that child abuse, and certainly from a psychological perspective, creates incredible trauma on the child. And chronic sexual abuse in the home, incest, is particularly damaging to a child's psychological, emotional, and physical being. And what academics now are saying, the reason there is no problem with child adult sex, the problem lies with how the parents perceive it. And they perceive it to be dangerous. They perceive it to be traumatizing. If the parents could only begin to understand and accept it, the children wouldn't be traumatized. This is the craziness of academics. And I mean, but people are like, it's so far out there. But it's back to, let's blame the parent for overreacting, because that way we can shut down the parent. The big agenda here is the deconstruction of family, what you're seeing left, right, and center over the last few decades for one reason or another. Fatherless homes, and parents, both parents out working, lack of child supervision. There's all kinds of things that are adding to the deconstruction of the family. But this particular issue is really, really a big one. And because it's going to become more and more, I think, out in the open and more insidious as the years go by if we don't stop this now. So I don't think I answered your question very well, but
no,
anyway.
you did about the importance of having that registry, and and to think that our attorney general, I mean, I couldn't believe he said that it's not, you know, in a small place like Barbados, it's not really necessary. But you know, as Mr. Franklin has been saying, you know, we've had a lot of issues with teachers who are, you know, we're seeing that pedophilia with teachers. We're seeing it with even politicians, where, you know, with MPs, you know, and because there's no real real structure, and any, we do nothing really. There's no real protection of children. So like when we hear about the child protection bill, you know, it's something that we all welcome, but then within it, it has some other things that's going on. I think, Caswell, do you have a question or a comment? I don't. I know we have a short time with you, and I have another question for you. But go ahead, Caswell.
And
can you restart? Your mic was muted. Can you restart?
I said I'd listened to Dr. Gillies, and I realized that we need to focus more on people like her to come to help our people.
Yes.
Realize what is going on in the world, because they're not listening to us anymore. They're listening to the politicians who bite them off. If international speakers, international people like Dr. Gillies will come out and speak, so we need to invite more of them, and we also need to put the information, like for instance, your group, where they banned your group from performing, that should be international news. We shouldn't keep it home, because it will embarrass them in the short term, and that's all. Because politicians only deal with short term, you know, they don't deal with any long term thing, because long term for them is 5 years. So we need to get people, and I wish we get, and I'm very grateful, ma'am, that you took the time out to come and speak to us tonight, because I learned a lot from you. And
the key is educating the parents into the dangers, and then activating them, activating the church, activating the parents to begin to speak out. But they need to be educated and understand what is true, because the government presents one perspective and sugarcoats it. But, you know, I did get a little chance to read through the child protection bill, just not everything, but one thing that was there, and it was on page 15. I can't remember which article it was, but page 15, and it's describing sexual abuse. And this is very good because it says grooming for sexual exploitation. That's a good thing to have in this legislation. What we are seeing, what we're witnessing in Canada, is this grooming for sexual exploitation is happening in the classroom. Not every class, not every teacher. I want to make that clear. But overall, it is a sexual grooming. When you expose children to sexual ideas and a sexual expression and sexual behaviors before they are old enough to actually understand those, and you're explicitly showing them pictures, diagrams, not photographs. If it was photographs, it would be immediately parents would go, that's pornography. But interestingly enough, one of the library books that's used for, I think it's 8 and 10-year-olds, I bought a copy. I hate paying for these kind of books, but I wanted to see it and really see what was in it. And it was horrific. I mean, it was actual sexual positions and very explicit gay sex and heterosexual sex. And this is for young children. And my 31-year-old son was home, and I just opened the book randomly and said, "Take a look at this, Matthew. What do you think about this?" And he just said, "Mom, that's pornography." And I said, "This is written for 10-year-olds." He said, "That's disgusting." And it was. But you see, when we lower the inhibitions of children by doing this, that's sexual grooming. That's grooming them for sexual exploitation. And that's why I think, and I say this, that we are seeing sexual abuse in our classrooms, and it's not being taken care of. It's not being identified because it's all under the guise of a sex ed.
Yeah. And go ahead, Caswell, and then I'll ask my final question.
Now, if you see grooming as wrong, right, and I agree that it is wrong. So when you take a child, 5 years old and 6 years old, and tell them that they are supposed to be sexual creatures and it's good to have sex and go do it in the corner, in the closet, that kind of stuff, that is, so I don't understand why you can be saying on one hand that one of those is good and one is bad.
So say that again. I didn't quite understand. Maybe slow down. It's my hearing and your accent. So
I remember I spoke. I was in Canada for a number of years ago, and everybody should tell me slow down. Like I forgot that I'm. What I'm saying, like you were referring to our section 15. I'm sorry, page 15 is section 2 of the act that says what grooming is, and that grooming for the purpose of sexual exploitation, pornography, sexting, or cyber abuse. That's an offense. That's a criminal offense. However, if that is a criminal offense, what more is a criminal offense than asking children to go and do these things in their closet? You know, that is grooming too.
Yes. Yeah. When we have to identify it and call it for what it is.
So these people don't seem to know what they want. You know, they just want to abuse children, and somehow they get their terms mixed up. Child abuse is child abuse. Whether you say even with the psychologists and the counselors and stuff, they are abusing children when they try to tell them that they can go this way and go the next. Because I'm a father of 5 children, 5 grandchildren, and I would not sit idly by and hear that one of my children being taught this stuff. You know, but a lot of people are afraid to speak up and to stand up, and because they have the power of the state behind them, and will criminalize a person like me, because trust me, my response would have been criminal if they were doing that to my child. But we have the state now, and the state is pushing these things, and that's the problem we have. That's the major problem that we have. It is being pushed by the state. Once when it was just the academia, they were talking rubbish. Everybody always thought they're mad people anyhow, because the people sit down in universities and sit down and come with nonsense. A lot of people don't take them on, but no, it is being done on the floor of Parliament.
Yes.
So, and people have to stand up. If they do not stand up, I don't know what will happen, because I can't imagine an adult 15, 20 years older than the child doing nonsense to them. No, but it seems to be okay if the law allows it. But whatever the law allows is not necessarily moral or right. It's just legal.
Yeah.
And you're right. The state's mandating things that should be the responsibility of the parent.
Yeah.
And that's when you see the state is taking over, and that's what's happening in Canada. They want to be the parent. They want to control the child. They do not want the parent to be to control the child.
Right.
And that little piece that I was saying, I actually did a little podcast about 2 weeks ago on that whole issue, reading a lot of that interview, and there's so much more to it. But, you know, the reality is, and like you said, that we as parents now, and you particularly now, is when you need to stand firm. You need to get involved in your in parent groups at your school. You need to get involved. I don't know what your education system has for school boards and things like that, and whether trustees are elected. They are in Canada, but you need now parents to get involved, get on the school boards, be a voice right now, because what we have found is that the people who are pushing, and I want to say this, it's not I don't know how to explain, not the general LGBT individuals. It's the activists that are pushing. Many gays and lesbians are totally unaware of what's going on in the schools. Most of them don't have children, you know, but when they're made aware, most of them are pretty upset themselves that this kind of education is happening in the schools, but it is the activists that are pushing it. And they are really, they are the ones who are in the forefront, and they are the ones who have strategically gotten into parliamentary positions, and places where they can make decisions, and on school boards. And so they become teachers, which, you know, is a wonderful vocation, but only if you have the best interest in the child in hand, and you're not trying to promote any kind of ideology. And so there's things as parents that, and individuals, that you can begin to take action. You can begin to be the decision makers in these areas, and that will really, really change the tide. But it means you need to activate now.
Yeah, yeah. You
Miss
know,
Gillies, sorry,
go ahead.
Marcia,
Go ahead, Timar. No, go ahead,
okay.
Timar.
Yes, I want to respond to what Miss Gillies was saying in terms of persons using the parliamentary privileges to impact on things like the Child Protection Bill. I mentioned earlier that the Speaker of the House was the lawyer, the legal representative for the person who raped little boy in Barbados. And through that court case, the buggery laws of Barbados were challenged through a court case. So the buggery law was struck down in court. So as opposed to the government going front on in terms of bringing a bill to Parliament to give these rights or whatever to whoever wants them, they set up one of their parliamentary representatives, who is the Speaker of Parliament, to represent alleged pedophile in a court case, which then set up the buggery laws in Barbados to be struck down so that he could not be charged for buggery, right? So the argument that they're using is that these two fellas, one over 18, one below, with 16, one over 16, one below 16, they're saying that the guy wanted it. Like, this is the child below 16. They're saying that he wanted it. So it was not a case of rape or forced sexual activities or anything, but they engaged in sexual activity. But the fact that he was below 16 is what got him charged for buggery, right? So, and the law being struck down, the buggery law being struck down, this now gives the alleged pedophile leeway to say no, every law is changed, that he did nothing wrong, right? So I just wanted some feedback from you on a scenario as such.
So you're
Go ahead.
asking about, I don't know the age of the child, other than they were under 16. And, you know, this is the whole issue, is that if you can claim that it was consensual, you know, that's the pushed in this whole area of sexualization, so that children will be groomed so that they'll receive, you know, this kind of interference, you know, sexual interference, without complaining about it. You know, the problem is, and I want to say this, that no child without being groomed is going to want to have sex with an adult. But if a young boy has been sexually abused, number one, in their home, perhaps incest, or perhaps it's a neighbor, if there's been some sexual assault, they are more likely in the future to be sexually assaulted. It's all there in the research, boys or girls. That doesn't mean they want it. It just means that they have lowered their guard, and they've come to this place almost mentally where it's like, well, this is the way things are. And that's a really sad thing, that adults would take advantage of a child's vulnerability. And so, yeah, you have these people that are saying, well, yeah, the child wants it. Well, that's it. Let's apply the law as it's stated. Let's not get into whether the child wants to have sex or not. Let's apply the law. No sex under 16, unless no sex under 16, and no adult interference, right? If we could do that, because children don't need to be sexually active.
Yeah.
That's the agenda of the left. That's the agenda of these oh, that's interesting. Indecent assault. Sexual assault's now called indecent assault. I'm just reading that. You know, here's something else I want to say. You know, we don't even understand what sexual assault is anymore, because what does that really mean? It used to be that the child was raped or molested, right? And molested kind of was that all-embracing thing that maybe there was no penetration, but they had been molested. Now we call it all sexual assault, which minimizes children who are raped. And that does such an injustice to the child, really. So we have to really state what's going on. And I think you're right that it's very sad that, you know, you can have politicians who actually may want to enforce the law, and then you can have judges that overturn it. We see that in Canada a lot. So I don't know if I've answered your question very well, but we just have to stand for truth, and we need to make sure the laws, as they are written, are actually enforced.
That they're enforce the laws. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin. How much before you go? How much more time do we have, Dr. Ann?
I'm okay for another 10 minutes or so.
10 minutes. Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah.
You see, the problem in Barbados is that the courts, I keep telling you on this show that I have no confidence in the courts in Barbados, because they interpret the law willy-nilly. Because we have a case here recently where a man had sexual intercourse with a child, and he was raising that child as his daughter, right? It turned out that he was not the real father, but he didn't know that at the time. DNA testing meant that the mother had intercourse with somebody else, while he was the incumbent, and they got this child, and he raised this child. He had sex with this child, and he got away because it wasn't incest. No, but it was still an offense to have sex with a minor. It's still that's still the law in Barbados, you know. But we always finding ways to let the fellow off, you know. And the next thing I want to draw your attention is that we had a judge striking down the law saying buggery is unconstitutional. We can't. But in Jamaica, they tried that, and the Court of Appeal in Jamaica said, "Oh no, it is not." So we come from the same tradition, the same basic laws that came out from England in 1864, whatever. These were, and yet still, one court in Barbados is saying it is right, and the court in Jamaica is saying it is wrong. You know, so you got to see it is just who the person is. And I'm saying right now that judges should stop legislating in Barbados or for Barbados, because something like that should have gone to Parliament. And the Attorney General, when that law was struck down, because he is the person who's supposed to protect the laws in Barbados, he should have appealed. But no, we don't appeal because who we have in Parliament, who we have leading.
Right. Yeah.
That's why we need godly, moral leadership.
Yes.
That's why we need to encourage people. And I would say Christians particularly. And I don't know if I've got a lot of feedback happening or what, there's some noise, but I don't usually. But anyways, to run for office, because we need people who share our views and values and want to protect children from these kind of things. And so, you know, we really need to encourage people to get into positions, because that's the strategy of the activists, is to get into high-level positions so they can change the culture.
You know, we see you have probably about 8 minutes left, and I want to ask you about the Praise Academy. You'd have seen a little bit of it when you were in Poland, of them performing and hearing that they've been disqualified because they're saying that, you know, you're either a male or female. I just want to hear your thoughts about that, and what do you say to Barbados and to the Caribbean about that, something like that happening? What should be the response of Barbadians or Caribbean people?
I'm not sure that I saw that. I heard a little bit about it, but it was just illuminate me a little bit more on that.
They showed Victor being in Barbados. This was a video with Victor being in Barbados, and then the kids were dancing and singing.
Okay.
Yes, and then later we you know, they explained that this group was disqualified from the a national competition in Barbados. So I'm not sure if you saw that. You were there at that event.
I heard that, but I didn't understand why they were disqualified.
Well, they were disqualified, they said, because of the content. They said that the content was discriminating against a particular group, because they were saying that there are only two genders.
Only two sexes. Only two sexes. That's why. Okay, okay, that helps me understand. Well, and that's
no, they were saying there were only two genders.
Yeah, two genders. See, there's the language again, folks. And one of the things that I am always saying to people, there are two sexes. Let's go back to the original language. Let's not use their language, because gender really is another term that is like, what does that mean? You know, but now we use gender. We've replaced sex with gender, and gender is simply really how you feel about your own sexuality, your femininity or masculinity. But anyways, nevertheless, what they're saying is that because, you know, you're specifying there's only two genders, two sexes, that's somehow discriminatory. And that's exactly what's happened. That would happen in Canada because it's all under this guise of inclusivity. We want to be inclusive. Well, we want to be inclusive, but of everyone that except heterosexuals. And there are only two sexes. There are only two sexes. That's all there are. There will never be any more than two sexes. What the agenda has done, what the LGBTQ activists and the educators have done, is really muddy the water with this idea that you can be multiple genders, which, of course, who knows? You know, people are deciding they're cats now. There's all kinds of identities. So I hear what you're saying. Those are the very things that we're fighting in Canada, and that here the children are being punished. You know, children are being punished because they can't be involved in different things, you know, because you have a belief system, you have values, and that's really sad. I think it's the pendulum is going too far. I think we're going to see the pendulum start to swing back, but it hasn't quite reached that point yet. It's going to implode because people are getting really tired of this in Canada and the US. They're starting to get really tired of it. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. What's your final word to the church in Barbados?
Educate, educate, educate. Get yourself educated on what this is all about. Get involved in your municipal, your provincial, your federal, I don't know what you call those, political entities in Barbados, but get involved. As parents, speak out, defend your children, and for the church to stand up to biblical sexuality. We need to stand firm on biblical sexuality. And that's really, really important, because that is what has been the foundation of our society. Even before Jesus, it was still the foundation of our society. You know, for us, it goes back to Adam and Eve. That's the basis. Man, woman, marriage, family. We want to stand for those truths.
Amen. Well, you know, we're looking forward to having you in December in Barbados. And at that time, I know that there will be many who are going to come, parents in particular, who they might be having children or young people who are struggling with same-sex attraction. And I know that you'll be talking a lot on those occasions about trauma and how that, you know, connects to that kind of those kind of choices and experiences. So we want to thank you for being on here tonight, and educate, as you always said. And it's a pleasure having you, ma'am. And we look forward to seeing you in Barbados, physically in Barbados.
That will be wonderful. I really have enjoyed talking with you all. And I thank you that you're really looking very carefully at everything that's happening, and you're aware and you're doing something about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you in December.
Yes, just get back to me pretty quick.
Yes.
Okay.
God bless.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Perfect. That was some education there happening, and this is all from my trip in Poland. And I now have these people, Mr. Franklin, that I can call on to come in and to speak on different things. And you see, they've all read the Child Protection Bill and all saying the same thing.
You know, but the important thing is that if desperate people from all over the place are seeing what is wrong with this bill, don't worry about people in Barbados, what they're saying. Ignore us. People from Canada is saying that has problems. People from Jamaica saying it has problems. People from England saying it's got problems. Good dear. Why is the government not listening to somebody? Everybody can't be wrong. So the government needs, even if they say that we have agendas. Okay, I didn't know any of those persons that spoke yesterday. The first time I've ever seen them in my life was on your meeting yesterday, and they're saying the same things that we're saying. So why is government so adamant? Are they now being told, okay, I don't care what people say, we can pass it anyhow, like what Edmund Hickson said, because that might not be his saying. He might just be told to say that because the government refuses even to listen to eminent barristers from outside of Barbados because they know best.
Yeah. But you should not be shocked though. You know that Emma Hinkson is on his way out, so he has to say anything to curry up a little favor. He's not even in the cabinet. He's just a backbencher. So his vote matters not. Nil, zero. So I wouldn't pay him any money whatsoever.
No, you do pay them money. I'll tell you why. In our baby practice politics in Barbados, the cabinet, but not only politics, but governance. The thing comes from a minister. It should. This is what it should. The minister would propose something, then he would get his permanent secretary to do all the research and stuff, and then present it to cabinet. Cabinet then agrees, and when the cabinet agrees, they draft a bill, and then the attorney general says that this bill is fit to go to parliament. It's constitutional and stuff like that, and that comes down to the house. Now, when government wants to put something up there, the cabinet cannot say, not us, because the cabinet has collective responsibility. So you get somebody from outside of cabinet. And because we don't have very many people who are outside of cabinet, because that in the house, because most of them are ministers, the task lies to an idiot. And you're not going to get Ralph Torrance to come up and say that, and say those kind of things, because he got more respect for himself. So you have to get Eddie Hickson to come up and talk this rubbish. Now, if there is enough pushback, government will then be able to say, but that is just Eddie Hickson talking. He is not in the cabinet. So they are using him as their convenient idiot. Like how Tom Adams used to use Aaron Trust. Aaron Trust would get up and make some noise about something, and then when the people start making noise, he said, oh, but that's just Aaron talking. That's not the cabinet's position. So they were testing the waters. So when you hear Eddie Hickson speaking, you can believe that it is coming from on high, and he is only molding it so that the government, the cabinet, can have deniability. You use an idiot for that purpose. And
Well, I would say similar to what they did to Colin Jordan and the NAS.
No, but
he's in the cabinet this time, though.
But the poor fella, his is lack of integrity. You know, he and he's one of those ministers of the gospel who's have sold his soul. Because I hear him, and I keep telling him, and I said on this show more than once, as a minister of the gospel, you can only serve one master. If you're going to serve me, then you're going to live with God. But you can't serve. You told them their goals are not consistent, so you can't serve opposing forces. And Myanmar is an opposing force to the gospel. She's an opposing force to God. She's an opposing force to what is moral. She's an opposing force to what is right in this country. You must remember, she was the person proposing condoms in prison. You know, so people should have seen that. You know, you're punishing people, you're bringing about the society, and then you're going to say, oh, but we can get them condoms, don't do what I want to do in prison. Trust me when I tell you, in prison, it is rape. You rape a fellow, and that is, a rapist don't put on a condom. But she didn't even understand that. But she just thought it would be nice if the fathers were having sex in prison, so it's not a big thing. So I tell you, she is opposed to what is right. It is her way.
But that's ironic.
One second, Kimar. I just want to say to those who are listening, because I'm here just listening to the both of you. I'm hearing stuff tonight that from you all that I never heard before, some of these cases. And I'm saying, I want to speak to those who are this program, over 300 persons, 328 persons on. And I want to ask us, what are we going to do about this child protection bill? We are seeing the dangers of it. We've gone out, we have marched. The people said it don't make a difference. They had people go into parliament, and even the Bar Association spoke out against it. But they still said that they're going to pass it. So what are Barbadians to do? What are you going to do? O'Neill, Square 4, Ramin, Pedro Jamot, Epic, all of you who are on here tonight, what are you, Clyde Vaughn? What are we going to do? Are we then going to are we to just throw our hands in the air? You're going to throw your hand in the air and just forget about it? I'm all about solution. What are we going to do? We're going to just sit down for it to pass, or is it that we're hoping that okay they could pass it, but then we're hoping somebody else to get in so it can be repealed? What we're doing here?
You see, that's a dangerous way of thinking, because if we're going to pass it and witness about get in and then get it repealed, these people by elections. I tell you already, and I'll say it again. I am 65 years old. I've seen many elections, and I can tell you there has never been a free and fair election in my lifetime. You can ask me any question about any election, I can show you where the flaws were. So getting elected is not, it is who has the most money now, not necessarily who the people are supporting. You remember in Franklin Stewart's case, when the merchants came out and they start campaigning against him. I'm not saying that Franklin Stewart was the best prime minister we ever had. But what I'm saying to you, he was not as bad as the merchants that they were trying to make him out to be. And they pumped money into the Barbados Labour Party to make sure that the Dems are gone. So it is money that rules Barbados.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to agree with you on that point. And I've often heard him telling stories about how when he was in office, that he was even approached to sell government headquarters, right? And there were persons from the merchant class approaching him to do all types of unscrupulous things, and he wouldn't do it, right? They even were pressuring him as prime minister to sign on to IMF program, and he refused.
This is Prime Minister Stewart.
Yes.
Yes. Right? They were pressuring him to join on to IMF program for so long. That is why we had all of those credit downgrades. Because if you look at some of what these credit rating agencies said, they said to Barbados, this is before December 7th last year when the government signed the IMF program. I remember it, December 7th is my birthday. They said that Barbados will not be downgraded if it signs on to another IMF program. What is that? That's called coercion, right? So all of these downgrades that this was an international effort to sabotage a country because it was not following a specific script. He said he was not going to take Barbados to IMF because he knew what an IMF program would have done to this country. Exactly what it's doing now, right? And they set up their institutions around the world to issue all types of travel advisories against Barbados. They set it up that they could sabotage the sewage plant and then plant stories all over the globe, right? They set it up that their financial experts could say that Barbados is a paradise gone bad and write all types of unscrupulous articles on us, right? But this was much bigger than just the day-to-day political issues, you know. This was also included in the same script that Caswell, I think it was you, Marcia Caswell, you spoke about the script, right? And I can tell you exactly what I mean, but I just want to observe first that Barbados and Mia Motley, just look at the relationship that she has with the Prime Minister of Canada. Right? We also did a show speaking to Canada and Barbados, and a lot of the similarities, particularly in the child protection bill, are being adopted lots here from the Canadian experience and being brought here. Right? So know that I've never seen governance in Barbados to a level like this, where a leader, prime ministers are traveling so much till it seems now that Barbados only focuses on international issues and not anything local, right? But that was part of the movement, as I say, to completely wipe out any political institution that handles the local affairs of the people and get one that was signed on to this new global agenda, i.e., IMF plans. So I just want to read something here for you quickly, Marcia. It says in the new economic system that these world players want to bring, that it will be called a new global open market economy. And these nations will expose themselves to what you call external shocks, external economic shocks, which means that there will be disturbances in your economy. It will happen every 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depending on how, just using the economic language here, how fiscally responsible you are as a government, right? So in these economic shocks, countries, nations, all of them go through it. All prices that we consider to be economic shock, right? Just look at our prices, our prices going up every day. And I think we spoke on the phone about the government increasing the fuel adjustment clause on Barbadians, sending the lit bill sky high. Right? So any government that is participating on the international market and to the level that Barbados is now participating, because I saw recently we were in the newspaper with Joe Biden. Like hand in hand with Joe Biden. So we are playing friends with everybody except Putin. Right? We are playing friends with everybody. But it is bringing dangers on the country because one, they change the interest rates on us. So all of this so-called cheap money that we were getting from the IMF and those people, that ain't cheap no more. 400% more expensive. Right? Again, Fonda avoided that. Fonda avoided that because he saw it. He knew what was coming. Right? All prices. If we listen to the BLP, we should have been paying the cheapest rates in the world for oil. But the oil prices keep going up in the air. Gas prices keep going up in the air. Gas starts at the pump. Right? So don't think that these people are any visionaries, They put a gas tax at the pump because they knew the international world trends and what was going to happen in terms of all of these oil crises, which will send the price of oil up to $150 a barrel. So they tax you that they could benefit when the prices go up in the air. Right? That's all you're muted.
Yeah, I keep muting Caswell because we're hearing this sweet music coming through. I don't know if it's
no music is here.
There's something that is playing through, so that's why I keep muting.
We're not hearing any. We don't have any music in the house now, though.
Okay, go ahead. Probably it's on the computer. Probably if you have something playing on the laptop itself.
No, nothing. Just you.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Barbadians are their worst enemies. I remember the merchants will always trick them and they go along with it. I well remember, and I'll talk about PriceSmart. When PriceSmart came to Barbados, PriceSmart was a joint venture with Barbados Shipping and Trading and the same PriceSmart. Alan Field, who was then chairman of the S&T, he made some spending on the opening. He made a speech, and in that speech he said, "Oh, Barbados will not have to go to Miami now to bring down barrels because everything that we are getting in these barrels, you know, you can get them from Price Mart, so you don't have to go anymore." Then, but the level of barrels did not drop because the prices at Price Mart was, you can still go up there and play a plane ticket and come back down, but your goods much cheaper, even if you included the plane ticket. So what did they do? Fields complained to the government that customs could not possibly be charging the correct duty on the stuff coming in those barrels, or not the price, the people wouldn't be going up still shopping. And that was probably true because customs officers are the agents and they know people go overseas to try to make a dollar thing, so they didn't charge you the full rate. But in order to check to see if the customs officers were charging the correct rate, they put up cameras in the port. And not cameras to spot out to see if people are coming to attack the officers. They use cameras to zero in on the written word, because the cameras were so detailed that you can see what the customs officers were writing. And I heard myself on the brass tax program, so many people got in there and cursed customs officers and saying that they want thief and they're a bunch of crooks, and that is why they don't want the cameras on them. The customs officers were trying to protect them. Same thing happened with Frandl Stewart. Frandl Stewart was acting in the best interest of Barbados, even though he was not shouting from the rooftops. He was acting in the best interest of Barbados, and we get the same merchant class again coming up there, joining with their motley, and taking them out. Because what the Dems have done, or what the Dems did, isn't as horrendous as what these people are doing. But you're not hearing that same cry. You want to know why?
Cry, yeah.
Because the merchant class,
yes,
getting what they want. So, and because they were not getting what they want under the Democratic Labour Party, then the Dems were the worst possible things in the world. Mind you, listen to me, I'm not a Dem, I never was. I only ever speak the 3 Dem meetings. So that was the talk about pensions, right? But the problem is in Barbados that Bajans don't think for themselves. They allow somebody else to think for them and come and tell them what they should be thinking. If you had to match what the Dems are doing against what the Barbados Labour Party is doing, you would go with the Dems. I'll go with Frandl Stewart each time. But Frandl did not blow his own trumpet loud enough. And these people here are blowing the trumpets even though they don't know a note. But they are blowing and people are listening to them and saying, oh, sweet music. We are being deceived. And we are being deceived by the merchant class because they are far better off under this government, this administration than the last.
Well, because we know that they did the merchant class did the same complaining thing again. And they actually, and Avinash Prasad, he was a champion of this. So they call it Amazon tax because they realized that people were getting a cheaper deal buying stuff from Amazon and buying it online, and they tax the people that Amazon is now collecting Barbadian tax revenue.
Yes, I'm well aware because they're collecting Zoom from Zoom too, because my Zoom account, I have to pay taxes on that every month now too.
But how could you have a big company like Amazon collecting government revenue? That is not illegal in any sense. And that type of cross-border tax collection, that should not be happening. But that was put in place to stop Barbadians from getting any deals on any consumer items and force them not to have to go and buy from the same merchants in the stores at heavily and highly marked up prices. Right?
But this is not new, This is not new. Well, this is long before your time came out, so you probably wouldn't know about it, but it was around then. In 1976, the government was changed. Tom Adams became Prime Minister of Barbados in 1976, September 1976. And one of the reasons why Tom Adams got power is because the merchant class then attacked the Dems seriously. Because Branford Tate, as Minister of Trade, instituted price controls. But the first thing the merchants did was to stop bringing in these things that were on price control. They wouldn't bring them in. So people were suffering for the goods that the merchants just refused to bring them in. And so when they didn't bring them in, the people are saying, well, look, it's the government's fault.
Right.
When the government was trying to make that the prices be cheaper, at one stage, what the government had to do was to get the Barbados Marketing Corporation to start bringing certain stuff to sell, but then the merchants wouldn't sell them. So the BMC only had one outlet. And of course, rather than curse who needed to be cursed, the people attacked Barrow and the Democratic Labour Party and Branford Tate more so than anybody else, because he was the face of you not getting the supplies that you wanted.
Right.
And it wasn't him. He was saying they can't sell at more than a particular price. And they was, and so it has always been the government change in Barbados from Dems to B. It has always because the merchant class got in the way and maneuvered in behind the scenes like the puppet master. When the government changed from B to Dem, it has always because the B's then failed, and then the Dems took over.
Right. So, but you know you're talking about the merchant class. I remember hearing those stories, some of those stories that Kimar was speaking of, how from the steward would refuse to give the merchants what they wanted, and they are the ones really. I learned this before he came out of office. Someone was explaining that to me, that exactly what Kimar is saying, that it was the merchant class. They had a problem with him and create help. They helped the BLP to win, and that they helped to create that sewage problem that was down at in Christchurch, right? That they helped to create that, to create a problem. And as Kimar is saying, writing articles that's coming from overseas. And I'm saying to Barbadians who are listening tonight, 347, 48 of us on here right now. Caswell and myself, that would and Kimar would be 350 on here tonight, listening right now. The question is, let's take something like the child protection bill that is coming up now. Are we going to be here talking about, oh, look how they pass it? What are we going to do? And don't tell me about what somebody else to do. I want you to ask yourself. I want you to ask yourself. Everybody on here listening to me, ask yourself. I ask myself, what am I going to do? This is about the child protection bill that they said every speaker, everybody that I showed the bill outside of Barbados, every lawyer, when I was in Poland and I showed it to them, they are telling us, be careful. This is a dangerous bill. That's what they're telling us. Mr. Umar from the US, Umar, I can't remember his last name now. He's going Umar Johnson.
Umar Johnson.
Yes, thanks, Kimar. From the US, came to Barbados and told us something is wrong with the bill. The woman from Canada, Dr. Gillies, just told us what the areas that are wrong, that there's a problem with the bill, and we must be careful. It doesn't protect children, right? Some parts of it, or those parts of it, don't protect the children. We heard it from the UK lawyer, from the Jamaican lawyer. What else are we going to do? We heard it from the psychologist from California. All these people are telling us we heard it from our own people first, but we don't like to listen to our own people. We don't like to listen to Dr. Evelyn. We don't want to hear the lawyers in this country. The lawyers are telling us something is wrong with it. Huh? Family Faith Fellowship Barbados went on and told us that something is wrong with it. Even some of the child care board people say something wrong with it. And what as Caswell is asking, why? Why would they want to still go ahead with this? And I'm asking the 340 odd of us on here, almost 350, what are we going to do? Ask yourself, what can I do? Think individually now. Think individually, because sometimes we get lost in the crowd and say, oh, well, we should do this and we should do that. What about you?
Marcia,
what about me?
Don't ask them to think individually here, because when they start thinking individually, they can say, oh, that can happen to me. That can happen to me. And that's what has been keeping us back all the time. That is why unions in Barbados are not as effective as they should be, because people are saying, oh, that can happen to me, until it happens. And then, remember Martin Niemöller, the priest in Germany, he said they came for the trade unionists and I wasn't trade unionists, so he didn't do anything. And then they came for the socialists, he wasn't socialist. He said, then they came for me. This is what will happen. They will come for you in the end. And when they come for you in the end, there will be no one there to stand up for you. We have to stand up now, and we have to get together. Even if you have to try to persuade your pastors, the ones that are still pastors and not in name only, persuade your pastors, because some of them are afraid to. Persuade them to come out and speak out on issues, because pastors shouldn't only be standing up and talking about hell and heaven. They should be talking about things that are going on in society, because they should be preaching to the whole person. And the churches have to do it. Not just the Marshall Week show. I see people almost every day when they leave this house. It's telling me, Caswell, you and Marcia doing a good job. And I said, what are you doing to help us? But you get that kind of thing. I want people to stand up for themselves. And remember the little demonstration I told you about in the beginning. Then you put the two matches to the match and you break them easily. They can't break you when all of you are together. So we have to stand up together and fight this thing together. If it means that we have to go there and march again, I don't mind. But Kadir.
Somebody is go ahead. I'm sorry, Caswell.
No, you go ahead, please.
Someone here is saying educate the parents and mobilize them to march on behalf of the children. And here it again, you're this person, God bless you, Yusuf Graves, but is giving a direction of what to do. I am saying, what I find, Mr. Franklin, I understand what you're saying is that they don't want to do anything on their own, and that's the point I'm getting at. That we have to be, we are strong as your weakest link. And even if you call a shutdown of this country, it comes down to a personal decision, because a shutdown of this country, the unions are not working with us. The unions are not working with us. So if you decide that you're not going into work, you have to make up your mind. You're going to lose that day's pay. This is why I say, while I understand what Caswell is saying, I say it comes down to an individual decision. It's how much do we love this country? How much we love our children? I don't understand. How much do we love our children? We have children, those children at Praise Academy that were disqualified. I met with them today. They would tell me, Auntie, I feel disappointed. Auntie, I feel confused. Auntie, this. And this is how they're expressing themselves. Some of them are fearful. Right? Some are fearful. Some are saying, listen, I don't want to do this, the production again. I'm fearful. This is what has happened to our children, and I'm asking. So Everybody has come. Caswell was on the show where everybody is telling us even that disqualification, it is infringing on our religious freedom, infringing on freedom of expression. It is censorship. Who is going to protect those children? We had the thing at Springer, and all this happened to those children, and we go right back into regular work and life again. We have forgotten all about that, and I'm saying it comes down to an individual. There are people who are saying, what we need to do is to storm the parliament. Why don't you organize that? Why are you waiting on somebody to do it? Organize it, get it happening. Somebody sent a letter today, and I put Mr. Caswell. I had a smile on my face. I really did. When I saw the sample letter came in, I had a smile because I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't write it. The letter was done. The idea came from someone. They said in Jamaica that they wrote letters, and then someone else said, let's send letters to the NCF, and then somebody wrote the letter and sent it to me. Right? Somebody took the initiative, wrote the letter. Well, they knew they had the letter had to be written, but I was surprised that they went and they did it and they sent it. They said, I will write the letter. This is the kind of thing. I'm sitting here, Mr. Franklin, and I'm seeing a petition that is started to go around. I'm sorry I don't have it so I can actually show it on the screen here. But there's a petition that has started about this disqualification. We have the other petition to send in, the physical signatures to send in at the end of November. And here we are again with another petition. So people are doing things, right? And somebody's saying we write the letters and all go and handle them together. All three of us. Are you right, Latoya? You're right. Even if it's 350 of us here, get the letters, and on a day we decide we're going to deliver them. Well, here we go. But the thing is, everybody has to take responsibility. Stop waiting on somebody. Don't go in the back and wait on somebody in the front to do it for us.
Marcia, you said just now, the unions are not working with us. I think you should have left off the with us. But what you can do, you pay the unions. Well, people who are members of unions pay the unions. If the unions are not standing up for you, you don't pay them. That's another thing that you can do. You can say, well, I'm very sorry. I'm not saying come and join Unity. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if you go into a business place to get a service, let's say I go to the barber to get my hair cut, and they sit on there all day and he ain't cut my hair, I can keep on going back there all the time. I will not go in there and pay for a service I'm not getting. You are not getting the service that you pay for from the unions. And because unions speak up on legislation, I remember as a boy, the unions used to participate. The NUPW that I know most about, they had committees that used to sit down and review the legislation and put a wet government on it. We don't see that now. So you're saying no, that they're not working with us. They're not working. They're not doing what they were set up to do, because part of their aims and objects, what the unions are set up to do, is to review legislation. And I think that's what they do as well, right?
But Caswell, to be honest, like, we know that these people been sell out though from the beginning.
Yeah, I know this.
Charlie
I know they sold
McDowell,
out. I know they sold out. But if they
Charlie
are sold
McDowell,
out, right?
Tony Moore,
But you don't have to stay with them.
all of them, right? Yeah, I mean, I can't say for you here, but they should really leave these unions and go over to Unity. But on a serious note, I write a book. I write a book by Gordon Matthews, who was a senator in Barbados, right? And as far back then, he was speaking about this union representation, and he singled out uh, Robert Bobby Morris for putting forward strong, proper representation. And he spoke in his book about how the moneyed class teamed up together with the help of somebody in the Barbados Labour Party to sabotage Robert Bobby Morris as a union rep, right? And the big businesses have been financially rewarding the heads of these unions, right? Uh, in the sense that if you're a union leader, you could come to their hotel, and you could eat food, and you could get discount on room rates, and you could get all these benefits as a union leader, right? But when it is time not to negotiate for the workers, you're supposed to turn the blind eye and do whatever they say. So these union leaders are caught up in the perks, caught up in associating with the business class and the political class, and they are not representing the workers. So for a time you could have Tony Moore, who on the money and block from the at every turn, right? You could forget that they wanted 23%, and when they
Right.
came in, they took four, right? And she's no MP in government, and it's not like she was an MP. They forced Glenn Clark to resign, and send poor Glenn Clark up in the cold in Canada to give her a seat, right? No, a Kenny McDowell is being brought forward to run in a constituency for the BLP, right? And
But
it is a disgrace, and it is a disgrace, and they will not stop saying it. That the entire
why sit
union
with them?
movement continues to focus on political elevation, right? And they're associating with the government for that purpose. And if you can team up with the opposition leader at the time, who was then teaming up with the merchants, and the merchants can then turn around and pay workers to go there and march against a democratically elected government. Well, that should have tell us something. But
No.
no,
Kimar, you are so right. You know, when you talk about the getting free food and free lunch and free rooms, you know, I I represent people at hotels. As a matter of fact, just last week I was at a hotel representing a worker, and you know, it isn't this hotel though, but another one they offered me. Um, I could come for lunch. I can, of course, I'm not paying, and I can have a room. And also, I tell them, well, look, you know, I really don't need a room because my wife don't like hotel sheets, you know, and I don't think they meant the room for my wife, but I didn't want to plan to go anywhere without her. And she don't like hotel sheets. I remember we went to Miami once, and my wife opened her bag, and she took out sheets and put my bed, you know. So she like her own sheets. So I tell her, look, I think I'll be used serving the purpose for me. But that is, they buy them. They give them food. They go to hotels and they sign a little shit and get up and leave after eating. And that is what we are sold for. When BlackBerry first came in, the United and Barbados got BlackBerries, and Cable Brothers got a bit of a lot of nonsense for a little BlackBerry. Shafet getting a snap box on a regular basis, and they sell out the workers on there. Poor Shafet, I remember some years ago, I don't know what the figures are now, but Shafet had 600 plus workers, all part time, and 35 full time workers. Only 35 people at Shafet up to a few years ago was full time. All the rest were part time. And I heard those Barbados workers, leaders singing Shafet's praises. Why? Because when they got activities at the union, Shafet will give them the food. Mind you, Kentucky wasn't getting the food, so they put better noise for Kentucky. So I got Ben Kentucky, Ben ask Kentucky only getting coleslaw. you know, but but that is the problem in Barbados. And the workers have to say, well, look, if those people are working in your interest, um, then let them pay you.
Yeah. Listen, I didn't realize the time had gone and left us. It's 10:04.
I realize, but I
You
didn't tell
know,
you anything.
I guess what Kibar was off with us the whole time. No, guys, I just want to encourage people again. There are 339 of us that's on here right now. and I'm asking us, can we just do something? Let's individually, we will go ahead, we plan the marches, and some of you give to it and so on. I know. Can you help us? If everybody go on the marciaweekshow.com, the marciaweekshow.com, and you are going to go on, you're going to look for news updates. Okay, you see where my cursor is, news update. You have the home, the message, and you see news update. You're going to get to this page here that says National Cultural Foundation disqualifies truth. Underneath, just before, okay, I'm sorry, I'm running ahead. There you see download letter, big and bold. And if you click it, right? If you click it, you're going to see a letter comes up. You can download, this letter, you can go ahead and you can write, you can print it, and you can write your own name in it. You can sign it, and you can put in the information for NCF in it, or you can write your own letter. You could write your own letter, right? And get it to the NCF. Get it to the NCF. If 300 and something of us do that, can you imagine? That's a big start, That's a big start, and that has nothing to do with Praise Academy. It's a principle of it that today is for Praise Academy, tomorrow is for the teacher, the biology teacher, next week is the Sunday school teacher. That's the idea. Forget about Praise Academy. There's also a petition that is going around. I don't yet have it up, but when you go to that page, you're going to see that petition is going to be on there. The marciaweekshow.com, you're going to see the petition is going to be on there as well. Okay, and sign the petition. Do something. We're not going to give up. We're not going to stop fighting. We're going to keep trying. Keep trying. And someone, I don't know if you saw that, Kimar and Mr. Franklin, someone wrote here, and I have the person's name, saying that, listen, they want to have to put an ad in the paper about the child protection bill. Okay, so I will reach out and let you know about that. But that's it. Somebody says that they will have to pay to put an ad in the newspaper, because you can buy an ad and put it in, and so they see that we mean business, and each of us, there are other things that you can do. One of the things you can do is just share the shows, share the show from yesterday, go and watch the show Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. It was live on our channel. Watch it again. My husband and I, we were listening to this morning, even though I was a moderator of the show. I was listening to it again this morning and I'm learning new things, and share that with others. Okay, and we have gone way over time. Caswell and
Marcia, let me read something for you. I will close off by reading this for you.
Let Kimar said something and then you finish. Okay.
Okay.
Kimar,
right.
Kimar, close off for us. You've been here
Yeah,
the whole
well,
time with us.
thank you for a good Sunday afternoon. I really appreciate being here as always. I mean, it was very riveting discussion. I actually enjoyed Dr. Giddy's contribution today, and it's always a pleasure to be on here with you and Caswell. I'm just gonna leave you with one thing really, and that's to say that every country has its problems. And as Barbados goes on to be connected to the international world even more, um, this thing about foreign exchange, our foreign reserves, will become the death of Barbados, because we have people who would pimp out this country for foreign exchange and for foreign reserves, and that involves selling us all, and that includes selling our children in this child protection bill just for foreign dollars and just to appease the conscience of foreign people, right? And know that we are in an unfavorable situation. And when countries find themselves in that situation, they usually end up at the IMF doors And if you know once you knock on the MF doors, then you agree to meet the conditions that they would dish out to you. So in dishing out these conditions, we end up with all types of immoral pieces of legislation, all types of immoral actions coming from our leaders, and things that seem like it don't make any sense, that's crazy to us. It makes sense to them because that is where the money that they're splurging in this country is coming from. And they have to pay the piper, and the payment for the piper is us. So we have to stand up and say, no, 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 you can't sell us. If anything, you're going to sell yourself. You can't sell our children. You can't sell our elderly in these changes to this pension legislation. So with that being said, I would wrap up my presentation. Thank you once more for having me. And I will say this one last thing. Barbados is closer. No matter we have all these foreign reserves, Barbados is much closer to the devaluation of the currency than it has ever been in its entire economic history.
And you drop that on us, you're going to have to come back on a night and show us what you mean by that and break that down for us. Thank you so much, Kima. It's a pleasure having you. And the last word, Mr. General.
While I was listening to Kimar, somebody sent me a, a video of flooding in Pycornis and see all that water running down there, and they want to give you jolly water. But that's not what they want to close up on. I want to speak to Martin Niemöller, a German pastor when the Nazis were ruling Germany. And you can substitute Praise Academy for any one of these things and say here. He says, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Okay? First, they came for Praise Academy. If you don't speak out, they can get to you, you know. So make sure, you see, what you must do is when your neighbor's house is burning, you get out your hose and you start wetting his and yours to make sure the fire don't get over by you. Start out his first, because if you wait till the fire gets too hot and it can get over by you, don't say it's the fire heat, so don't worry. Come out and wet your neighbor's house when you see it is burning. This is what is happening in Barbados now. Praise Academy needs your help. But you need your help, because if you don't help Praise Academy, you're not helping yourself. It's as simple as that. And don't think I'm mad. It will happen to you eventually. But then you can say, you know something? Caswell, they're saying so ever since. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I want you to act now. To forestall that's what Caswell was saying. I don't want to hear you say what Caswell was saying. I want you to speak up now. Because I can think about, I have children, but all of my adults know, but when, and my little girl used to go dancing too, you know, and she had been involved in this kind of thing, I would be paying to, because she worked so hard. I used to work hard going to pick her up from class and from dancing and all kind of thing. You got to pick her up from school like that. It used to be a lot of work for me too. So when that work comes to fruition, you've got a show to put on, and then you get banned for doing nothing wrong. Kadir, put your children in their place and see if you would like that to happen to your children. And if you would like that to happen to your children, don't say anything, don't do anything. But if you wouldn't like it to happen to your children, make sure it don't happen to them. Get this thing reversed. Help us to help you. Thanks, Marcia. Good night, all.
Thank you so much. God bless you all, and see you tomorrow night. God bless you. Bye-bye, everybody. Pedro, Jacure, Kryptonite, Shane Priest, everybody, Sheriff Hunt, everybody, have a good night. Sleep well. Pray for Barbados. Pray for Barbados. Pray for
Marcia,
Barbados.
just want,
And act.
if you don't mind, I just want to ask you, you believe that if you were promoting, if you did the opposite and promoted that there were more than two genders, do you feel that they would have disqualified you?
They would not. They would not disqualify me.
But then she would be discriminated against people like me.
So then it would not be discrimination according to them. Oh boy. Anyway, God bless you all. Have a good night. Sleep well. Bye-bye. See you all